Okay, and welcome to this afternoon. Sorry, God, there's the first mistake of the day. Planning meeting at Somerset East. I've got a crib sheet to read out first for you with instructions, etc. I'll do that now, and then we'll move on swiftly. So, welcome everyone to the meeting. Well, I've done that. This meeting is taking place in the council chamber at Shepton Mallet, and we have members of the planning committee, officers, public speakers, and members of the public physically present in the chamber. We also have members of the public watching the meeting on Teams. Cameras within the council chamber allow us to film the meeting for viewers on Teams and also record the meeting. Therefore, any members of the public present should be aware that they may be recorded even if they are not participating in the meeting. If this causes you any concern, then please let me know now. No, you all look happy. Members who have brought their own device with them, ensure that their cameras are switched off and, very importantly, their device microphone and speakers are muted for the duration of the meeting. Otherwise, this causes feedback on the council sound system. Public speakers contributing to the meeting virtually should switch their cameras off and put their microphones on mute until they are invited to speak by the chair. It is not permitted for any other member of the public viewing by Teams to contribute in the meeting at any time. Should any member of the planning committee wish to speak, please raise your hand and catch the attention of myself and Vice Chair Edric, legal advisor, it says Martin, but it's actually Paula today, and or lead officers, i.e. Simon and Anna, and when members in the chamber speak, remember to switch on your desk microphone so that all those in attendance and viewing can hear you. Okay? Please do not use the chat function within Teams for anything. All contributions must be made verbally. And please, can all mobile phones be set to silent? Thank you. And I will add, can we remember, well, I repeat every time, to have respect for each other, respect for officers, and respect for members of the public, and the same goes for members of the public to have respect for officers and members. Thank you. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, and we will add now on this one at the moment, so that you're aware, that the next meeting is moved to July the 11th at 2 p.m, I think, Edric, isn't it? 2:30, 2:30. Okay, so if we can make sure that's in the diaries, and I think it's pretty obvious the reason why we're moving it. Yeah, I think it'll be a bit busy elsewhere. Okay, so we're happy with that. So next we'll move on to, now I'm always in a hurry here, so don't worry. Next we move on to, I believe it's apologies next. Please, Helen, do we have any apologies?
Hi, yes, there's apologies from Councillor Helen Kay, who's on a leave of absence. So Councillor Michael Dunk is acting as her substitute. Councillor Susanna Hart has sent apologies. So Councillor Alistair Hendry is subbing for her. And we have no Claire Sully at the moment. Yes, Edric.
Thank you very much, Helen. I noticed that, I think if you check your emails, Councillor Sully's put into a Lib Dem WhatsApp group that she did send apologies in at 13:27. So if you check your emails, I think she has apologised before the meeting started. Thank you.
Thanks, I will note that. Thank you.
Thank you for spotting that, Edric. As I explained, I have no internet at the moment at home, so I miss a few. Okay, so now we move on then to. Oh, sorry, yeah, Martin.
Right, sorry to interrupt. Are we reduced to 11 members now then? Since the last full council? I mean, I'm. Or was my maths improper? Shouldn't there be 13 of us?
Sorry, if I can just join in. Councillor Rob Reid has been appointed to replace Councillor Alex Wiltshire. He wasn't able to attend. I didn't include him on the apologies on this one because nobody knew that. But yes, Rob Reid is also apologised. But that makes 13.
Thank you for that, Helen. Thank you, Martin, for bringing it up. Helen, has Rob done his training, do you know?
No, that's another reason why he wouldn't do today.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we
He needs to
don't
do
allow
training.
people on without training, so he has to go through the process first. Okay, that's fine. Now we're all happy-ish, so we can move on. Right, let us do next on the minutes of the previous meeting. Here we go. Page by page in the normal way.
Did you want to just make a comment on that paragraph that's going to be removed?
You'd like me to make that one now?
Say it now, because then
Well, actually, as you're speaking, Helen, you might as well do it.
I think I wrote everything on your sheet, but I believe it's page 30. Is that right?
Yeah, you've got it here somewhere.
There was a paragraph added post-meeting, which explains something that happened after the meeting occurred, which actually should not be included in the minutes, as it didn't take place in the meeting. So that will be taken out of the final minutes. That's all.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Everybody happy with that? Yeah, okay, great. Now we can move on. As I said, I'm always in a bit of a hurry. So we start with on the minutes from the previous meeting. So we start, I think it's page 17. Yeah, page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, which I think was where we've done the alterations. Councillor Dunk.
Sorry, Chair. I'm using, for some reason, I've got a list here with no numbers except the ones at the top, which don't correspond to the ones you're using. Anyway, it's planning application 2023-2451 FUL, flats 1 to 4 Saxon Vale. And there's a small.
Sorry to interrupt you, mate, but I need the page number, or we need the page number.
Well,
And that's which page do you think it's on?
I don't know.
The numbers are at the bottom of the page here.
I've clicked on the business with the minutes, and it came up with a list which doesn't have the page numbers at the bottom. You're going to find it here.
30.
Page 30.
It is page 30. That's okay.
Okay. It's just there's a detail at the bottom which isn't correct.
Okay.
Where are we? Now,
We're all ears.
oh, right. Right. Okay. It's just at the end. It says, on being put to the vote, the proposal was carried 5 votes for, 2 votes against, and 2 abstentions, and then resolved. And then at the end, it says in bold, votes 5 for, 3 against, 1 abstention. It's just that they can't both be right. So that's my only comment, really.
I can check that.
Can you check that? Yeah. That's
Not corrected.
Saxon Vale, yeah.
I'll correct it in the final.
Great. Thank you.
Which it is.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for pointing that out, Mick. Right. Moving on. I'm sorry you haven't got any pages.
Excuse me, Chair, we need to propose a second in the vote, please.
To vote? We haven't finished yet.
So I thought we'd finish all the end.
Sorry. Okay. Right. Let's carry on. Page 31. Page 32. Page 33. I think that is it. So, as Edric rightly pointed out, we need a proposer and a seconder, please. Proposed by Martin and second by Dawn. Okay, thank you. That's great. So next we will move on to.
Vote then, please.
Oh yeah, the vote. Yeah, we've had another vote. Come on. All those in favour? Any against? Unhappy? No. Right, okay. So next it's
Minutes from previous meeting.
agenda item 5, which is St Edmunds Community Hall. Now, I'm just going to check
excuse me,
something.
Chair,
I can
sorry.
listen.
Sorry, declarations of interest are next.
Yeah, I'm going to put the date in a minute. I just want to check something first. I can stay here and listen to Ed's thing. Right, okay. Because I will be declaring an interest in this one. I might as well do it now. It's a non-registrable a non-registrable interest due to my town council association and also with the St Edmunds Community Hall. I'm a trustee. Okay, so we've got that. So bear that in mind. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to the presentation. Then I will say what I need to say, and then I will leave the room and Edric will chair the meeting for that item. Okay, thank you. Ed?
Thank you, Chair.
You didn't mention public question time, although we haven't got any. You're really rapidly going through this.
I asked to speak on this one. I emailed and I telephoned about asking to speak on this one.
Sorry, who's that speaking?
It's Serena Onudogal speaking.
Yes, that's
trustee.
correct. Yes, yes. You are registered to speak. We go through the application first, and then the chair or vice chair today will ask you to speak. So if you'd like to just listen, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for clarifying.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is an outline application for 4 one-bed units for rental accommodation. Sorry, I appear to have hit a technical issue. Let's try again. I think I've been booted out of Teams. Yeah. Okay, let's try again then. Yes, this is an outline application for 4 one-bed rental units in Glastonbury. Here we go. This slide shows you the zoomed out location on Google Maps. So the red outlined area there shows you the site area. This is the location plan. Again, the red line shows you the area of the site there. To the south, you can see the community hall, and where you've got, just to sort of give you some reference points, numbers 5 and 7, that's where McColl's shop is. And again, just a bit more zoomed in on Google Maps, the red area shows the site again in its context. Community hall outside the site at the bottom, south. This slide is just to show you that the application site lies within the settlement limits of Glastonbury. And the slides that follow just show a series of photos taken from within the site. So this one is looking towards the southwest, and on the left-hand side of the photograph is the community hall. This one looking northwest, so you can see some of the backs of some of the dwellings on Chinook Road there, and one of the gardens. You can also see the height barrier at the entrance, or within the entrance to the car park. This photograph shows the back of the the shop, the convenience shop, and on the right is the fencing to the edge of the car park. This photograph looking northeast is then through that fencing, which looks down onto the properties on the other side of the road, so outside of the site. And that one shows the relationship, I suppose, between the site and some of the nearby properties. And that's just a similar view looking east. And finally, this shows just the car park plus the community hall looking to the south. This image is taken from Google Maps and is old, is from 2018, but that's just to show you the access from outside the site. So you go in between the shop and the properties there to access the site. This is the proposed layout. So what you can see there on the right hand side, and I should say it's indicative as this is an outline application. So you have 4 units proposed on the right hand side, shown in the sort of grey. The entrances are in the middle, if you like, so the units face each other. So this indicative layout is not the original layout as submitted. The layout has changed in response to Highways comments, but also to address some other issues. And this also shows the parking that would be provided. So you can see 3 spaces next to the units, and then a further 4 spaces sort of at the bottom. So 7 spaces, parking spaces in total are shown there. This slide just shows the floor plans and elevations of the proposed units. So they're 1-bed units with essentially French doors at one end, so sort of limited windows other than that. And that's the end of the presentation in terms of the detail, but there are some updates to share with you. So since I mentioned with the site layout that has been amended, and I'm just going to bring that back up since it was originally submitted. So when this application was first reported to committee, we were not in receipt of comments from Somerset Highways. We now are. We now have those comments. Based on the previous layout, Somerset Highways were essentially objecting for 2 reasons. One was that turning and manoeuvring was not shown as achievable within the site. And secondly, based on parking displacement. So now on this current indicative layout, the first issue of parking and manoeuvring has been addressed as far as Somerset Highways are concerned. That second issue, though, of displacement of parking remains, and that is on the basis that you'll have seen in the report pack. This application, taking into account the 4 units proposed, plus the kind of level of parking we would expect to be provided for the community hall, there is a shortfall of 4 to 5 parking spaces. So we would expect to see some parking displacement elsewhere in the local area. So that's the first update. And the other update was regard to a couple of the conditions. So condition 6 is recommended to be amended to omit some of the wording, and that is basically to omit, excuse me, the words "in connection with the development hereby permitted," and that's basically because the proposed condition 6 is a standard condition which would normally relate to the proposed development, but in this case, the parking is obviously not just for the proposed development, it's for the community hall, and it's also used in connection with the shop. So it's essentially uncontrolled car parking. And the final further update would be and this is after having received those additional comments from Somerset Highways, the addition of a further condition in relation to cycle parking. Yes, so those are the updates. And then, so just to summarise the report as presented, officers have identified both benefits and harms in relation to this application. The key benefit, which was highlighted or set out quite clearly, I think, by the council's housing enabling officer, was in relation to the provision of this specific type of accommodation, move on accommodation, and how that fits in with the council's strategy for housing. And in officer opinion is that is a significant benefit. And then on the other hand, harms identified that displacement of parking into the wider area. And so in the report, that's considered to be by officers a moderate harm. And then also it's similar but slightly different, the effect that would have on the community hall as well. So what we're saying as officers is that reduction in parking would also potentially make the hall less usable because of increased pressure, parking pressure being put on the hall. And again, a moderate harm has been identified for that. Yes, and that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. As I said, I will listen to your speech and then make my own and leave the room. So, and then Edric will chair the meeting. Okay, you won't be surprised to hear that I disagree completely with your summing up. I believe there is no room. The car park is needed for the hall. We get 60 to 100 people there at a time, and they drive and they park there, and it's used a lot. It's also used by local people in the evenings to park their vehicles. There is no room for extra cars on the highway in the area. Absolutely impossible to find parking spaces. It's bad enough now. The map was a little bit misleading if you haven't been to the pictures, if you haven't been to see there. It made the car park look longer than it actually is. That's a problem. It's not as big as what it looks if you haven't seen it. And so I think that's something to bear in mind anyway. But trying to fit 4 units in there is unbelievable, actually. I couldn't believe it when I first heard. Thank you. Yeah, I know very well. I wouldn't have I would never have come up with this idea myself. It's completely the wrong place. It's a great idea. Don't get me wrong. It's a great idea, but it's in the wrong place. And I'm rather sure that all the other speakers will cover everything that I haven't missed. I just wanted to make it basic of what I personally believe without going into details so that I don't ruin everybody else's presentations. So I'll leave the room now and let Edric chair the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll just wait till you've left the room. Thank you, Nick. And first time taking over from Nick in a year or so. I now have the first objector is Jill Rossiter, who's given me a speech to read out. The proposal to build 4 units for rental accommodation limits the use of the St Edmunds Community Hall. The parking spaces will be reduced and will impact negatively upon the local population, who already experience difficulties in being able to park outside their own homes. Although the council may have no further plans for the community hall, we could have an opportunity to help our community. The cost of living crisis and impacts of the pandemic are felt by our population. Impacts such as social isolation, mental health problems and fears of what the future holds. Our young people and our elderly population are particularly affected. Other possible uses could be community cafe, shop, swap shop, brackets, clothes and toys, mental health outreach, activities for young people. The Windmill Hill community has many resourceful people who could come together to help others. It need not be a burden to Castrant Council, but with support and coordination can be very effective. By taking away much of the car park, it takes away much of the hall's potential. I'm in favour of the new units, but consider the proposed site unsuitable. There are allowed musical functions of the hall which could disturb the residents. There are other locations that have been suggested to me by locals that could be suitable. Thank you for this opportunity to express my thoughts on this matter. From Jill Rossiter, 30th of May 2024. So thank you, Jill, for your submission. I now move to Objector 2, who is Ian Tucker, please, if you'd like to speak. And you have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Ian Tucker, and for 50 years, I was the independent councillor for St Edmunds Ward in Glastonbury. I'm also here in memory and to protect the legacy of two determined women who spent a lot of their time establishing and running St Edmunds Hall project. For anybody unaware of Windmill Hill, it sits at the top of a steep hill above Glastonbury, built as a council estate in the 1950s. It has very narrow concrete roads, but every house at the time was built with a bike shed. At the time, it was not envisaged that factory workers would be able to afford a car. It was a friendly community which boasted 3 shops and a labour club. And for many of us newly married, we moved up there because it was affordable housing. With the closure of the factories in the late 70s, the Labour Club also closed down and the site was cleared for more housing. But the community missed the centre, and Stephanie Morland, a town and district councillor at the time, undertook to replace it. She found an old prefab school classroom and got permission to put it in an overgrown corner of the car park behind the shops. We were all badgered to give money or physical help or organise some fundraising, and repaired and built the first part of St Edmunds Hall. It was so successful that we had to double its size over the following years. For nearly 40 years, we've run it on a shoestring. Your chairman, Nick Cottle, knows very well because he was chairman for nearly 10 years. But it was getting tired and it was expensive to heat. So when the town deal was announced, one of the accelerator projects was St Edmunds Hall. A second determined woman, Emma George, was chair at the time and organised local tradesmen to work at special rates to insulate and reclad the building and put in the height barrier on the car park to protect it from various travellers who'd come and sat on the car park over periods of time. Since that work was carried out, it has never been busier. It is used by everyone from toddler groups, a flourishing youth club, as a polling station, and the U3A. The bike sheds have mainly become redundant, as most households now have at least 1 car, and in fact, some of them have 3. So the highways have rightly recommended refusal of this permission. To lose the car park will kill the hall and probably the very popular convenience store that it also serves. I wonder what your communities would think if it was proposed to put these units on all of your village hall car parks. As I told the applicants when they held a very last-minute public consultation, this is a very commendable idea, but it is in totally the wrong place. And it will be very unfair on the tenants who will take the blame for the loss of this car park and the development.
Could you wind up now, please, sir?
I will. And if you think about this the other way round, would we be able to build either a convenience store or a community hall without the planners wanting us to build a car park?
I'm sorry. That's your time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking to us today, and I'd like everybody else speaking, please, if they could stick to 3 minutes, as we do have a long agenda. I'd like to go to Serena Roney-Dougal, who I believe is on Teams. Are you there, please, Serena?
Hello, can you see me now?
Yes, thank you. And you have slightly over 3 minutes, but I will cut you off shortly afterwards should you stray too far over. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much. So, like Nick Cottle and Ian Tucker, I am now a present trustee of the hall, whereas Ian is a former trustee. And we talked about this at our AGM, and there were 4 issues that meant that the trustees feel that this is a really bad idea. The first one was that actually within the residents of Windmill Hill, there was a severe lack of consultation. I know of a few people who were leafleted and told about the consultation days, but certainly nobody on my street or my neighbouring streets were. So that was a big point against what was being done. We've already talked about the loss of parking. It is, I mean, I cannot believe looking at that plan. It is taking away 3/4 of the car parking, and this hall is used by lots of people. It's used by playgroups, youth clubs, U3As, over 50s, and a lot of these people are vulnerable people, and a lot of the residents of Windmill Hill are people who have come there as single parents because they've come out of refuge and they've got young children, and they have spoken to me and said that they would feel scared going to the hall along that very narrow access past these units. The hall, as Ian Tucker said, was built by the locals for the locals and is well used by the locals. As both Nick and Ian have said, there is no car parking available up on Windmill Hill. It is absolutely crammed full with cars, to the point that the buses are refusing to drive up the hill and round the hill like they used to, because there's so many cars parked, they find it difficult to turn the corners in the roads. That's how dire parking has become up on the hill. I know from a recent planning application that I've been part of down on the Beckery, that for a meeting hall, we were required to have booked only cars for 5 spaces. No overflow parking or unbooked parking was to be permitted for our planning application, and we have complied with that. So how you can think that 3 spaces left for the visitors after you've taken 4 spaces for the people who are living in the units, that is ridiculous. I know that 50, 60 people coming to that hall for different projects, and you cannot expect 50, 60 people to fit into 3 parking spaces. It's utterly ridiculous. So that is the parking, but also one of the things in the AGM was the effect of the young people and the vulnerable old people using the hall. They did not feel, the residents of the hill, and they voiced this to the trustees, that this was a suitable thing for a community hall that is used by the community on the hill. And it is,
please, could you make this your last sentence if possible? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've said what I need to say.
Thank you kindly for joining us. Thank you. And next we have Lindsay McDougall, who knows the system and how much time she has. Thank you, Lindsay. Nice to see you back in the chamber.
Can you hear me all right? Yes. So, good afternoon. I'm Lindsay McDougall, and I'm objecting to this application. Some of you will know me as an ex-member of this planning board, Mendip Planning Board, as it was a couple of years ago. And I believe 4 years of witnessing how housing decisions are made has given me some relevant insights to comment on this application. I should confirm that I speak as a town councillor and that I am not representing the town council, although I am also objecting to this application. This application for temporary rehabilitation units in a community car park impacts a well-used community hall. I personally first used it to set up a playgroup many years ago now, but this is the sort of use that this hall is providing for. Groups include the YMCA-led youth club, U3A, self-help groups, repair cafe, dance class, music classes, book club, life drawing class, and numerous one-off bookings for events and private parties. The kitchen was refitted recently to a commercial standard with the aspiration to set up a cafe with £65,000 from the Town Deal Accelerator Fund. A proposal to use most of the car parking space here seems counterproductive to these improvements. For a 70-person capacity hall, the 25 or so spaces, car parking spaces, plus maybe 5 more in the shop car parking at the entrance, seems the right amount of parking provision, and reducing it by half or much worse will surely impact hall use. In addition, the siting of rehabilitation units at a hall used by families is surely just not right. I understand the occupants won't necessarily be from Glastonbury, so it's not even addressing the town's housing needs. In response to possible accusations of NIMBYism, my answer would be, we need the homes and houses, of course, but it has to be in the right place. And to this, I would add the right kind of houses. Developers have been given a free hand for many years to build the houses that give them the best profit, with a small percentage of so-called affordable housing, which is largely not actually affordable for ordinary people and not responding to the needs of the community. So when attempting to address some very real need, as we have here, we end up with totally unsuitable applications like this, where it is proposed to house vulnerable people where their vulnerabilities will have a detrimental effect on the immediate community, which has its own deprivation issues already. You should be aware the site is located at Windmill Hill, which is a steep 20-minute walk uphill, separate from the rest of town and its facilities. It would be a loss to the local community here to reduce the already minimal provision of facilities at this site. Please refuse this application.
Thank you very much, Lindsay, and bang on time. And now I'd like to call Tom Willis to speak, please. You two have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Thomas Willis. I have lived in Glastonbury on and off for the last 50 years. And I think this is a commendable suggestion that we build housing for homeless people. We have a serious homeless problem. I've been homeless. I've slept on the streets. I've slept in the woods. But we also need community halls. We need community space. And this is going to be, we should not be choosing community space versus housing for homeless people. We need both. This is a wonderful suggestion. It just shouldn't be destroying the community centre. This will be so detrimental. It's ridiculous.
Excuse me, could we please not clap, because people online need to hear this speech as well. So could we keep quiet in the public gallery, please? Thank you.
So, you know, Julian House, great. Come to Glastonbury, build some housing. We desperately need it. Not just Glastonbury, but Glastonbury especially. We have homeless people. We need housing for people, but not destroying the community centre. And also, in Glastonbury, we have a large number of people who house themselves. They don't have a house. They don't have somewhere to rent. They sort themselves out. Some people like it. Some people don't like it. But many people are living in other sorts of accommodation, and the authorities are trying to evict those people, like the Zigzag. They're trying to throw out people who are housing themselves. This will exacerbate the housing problem and the homelessness problem. We desperately need more housing, more accessibility, but we do need a community centre, and we should not be forced to choose between one necessity and the other necessity. We should not be pitting two necessary things against each other. So I would like to see the committee reject this, and I would like to see this happen somewhere else in Glastonbury. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd then like to call Conor Ogilvie-Davison, please. I'm sure as a clerk you're aware you have 3 minutes to speak, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee for the chance to voice Glastonbury Town Council's objection to this application. Julian House presented this project to Glastonbury Town Council at the October 2023 meeting of full council. And whilst the Town Council fully supports the project to provide single people with an existing connection to Glastonbury a safe place to call home, it raised several concerns about the details and location of this application, as have YMCA Brunel Group, who provide the youth service from the hall, and the Glastonbury Town Deal. That latter body has also objected to this application. It's worth noting that consultation with the Town Council and the trustees of the hall was very much at the 11th hour. The Town Council's Planning Committee undertook a detailed review of the application and submitted plans, submitting a recommendation to refuse the application on the following grounds. The proposed development will have a negative impact on the amenity of another property. The proposed development and use are not compatible with the existing uses. The development is Class C3 and will be built on the site currently used as a car park for a Class F2B property. The development will cause traffic problems due to loss of parking spaces, which drastically reduces the amount of car parking available for the hall and for the local shop. The development will have an impact on the viability of St Edmunds Ward Community Hall, a vital low-cost space for local people to use. The layout and density of the development is inappropriate, and the type of housing proposed will not satisfy the local housing need identified through Glastonbury Town Council's Housing Need Assessment. Glastonbury is generally a low-lying landscape, but the community atop Windmill Hill and St Edmunds Ward faces not only financial and social barriers associated with a deprived community, but also geographic and travel barriers as a result of the steep landscape with poor public or active travel links. St Edmunds Hall is a vital resource for the community atop the hill and wider area, and plays a host to a whole variety of community groups, events and initiatives. This application will have a huge negative impact on the viability of the hall and will detract from the positive social impact that it currently has for this deprived and relatively isolated community. To summarise, Glastonbury Town Council feels that the location of this application is wholly inappropriate for both the project and for Glastonbury's community. Would this usage of what is a village hall car park be considered appropriate elsewhere in Somerset? The Town Council recommends that the committee refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to call John Cousins to speak. It wasn't listed originally, but we've given dispensation to speak on this matter. Thank you. As you know, John, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair, councillors, officers. I'm a town councillor in Glastonbury and I've represented St Edmunds Ward since 2011, but I'm not speaking in that capacity today. I also have the honour of being the chair of St Edmunds Ward Community Hall, which is the hall whose car park this development will be built in. I would like to point out the material considerations, some of which you may have already clocked as you have all had your planning training, but the one that is most pertinent here, and I don't believe that it's a sort of mild issue, is the impact on parking. This is certainly going to cause parking displacement into an area that's already fully parked up. If you ever go to St Edmunds Hill, Windmill Hill as we call it, you will see that there is nowhere for this the people who would use the hall or indeed the shop to park otherwise. This is our second material consideration. It will have a negative impact on the viability of the hall. If you think of it as a community business, it's a charitable community business, but this is a hall that gets by on the skin of its teeth because we pride ourselves in being able to offer the local people a space that is cheap. Why is that important? Windmill Hill is a lower super output area in the top 10th decile of the deprivation indices. We are comparable with inner city spaces in London, in Manchester, across the entire country. This is in the top 10 of the deprivation indices, the first decile. So please bear that in mind when you're making a decision. I would just say that I'm also speaking on behalf of the exercise group that meets for older people, the dance classes, the mental health and disability support group, the Morris dancing that happens on a Wednesday evening. It's very good if you should come along. The U3A, which have chess group, book club, also providing learning facilities for older people. all of whom, when the U3A is there, the car park is full. The martial arts group that meets, the youth club, one of the most popular youth clubs in a deprived area. We have also ballroom dancing, 5 rhythms dancing. We have workshops, meditation groups, and then there's the children's parties for the children of the hill, and of course the birthday parties. And when people have a wedding, we have a good knees up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. And our final speaker on this is the agent, Joanna Lum. You two have 3 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, councillors. The Somerset Homelessness and Rough Sleeper Strategy believes that nobody should be without a place to call home, and no one should have to sleep rough. With this project, we can help achieve that aim. We understand there are worries. Homelessness is a complex issue, and it is natural to have questions. We have answered them and addressed genuine concerns through our 4 community engagement events and with a dedicated email for further communication. We understand and have heard that local people are worried about the harm that homeless people might do to them and their community. However, statistically, people experiencing homelessness are 17 times more likely to be the victims of crime, violence and exploitation than members of the general public. Somerset Council's monthly rough sleeper survey for April shows the county has 65 known rough sleepers, 28 of whom were in Somerset East, representing 43% of the total. Somerset Council themselves explored all suitable sites within its ownership, including locations suggested to them at the 4 consultation events, along with sites owned by the Astor Group, and this location was considered the most viable. Homes England has contributed nearly £740,000 towards the capital and revenue funding of this project. The SHAP funding has ended, so this will be the only opportunity to access those funds. The aim of this development is to improve the lives of vulnerable members of this community, to create economic growth through the jobs by employing 4 dedicated staff. It will also provide volunteer opportunities and work experience. It is to add high social value, reducing the cost of homelessness to the local authority, the NHS and the police. Assisting clients back to work and education and into their own homes will add economic value. Julian House can evidence the lack of need for specific parking for our homes. Statistically, 1 in every 1,000 people we support in this cohort has access to a vehicle. Buying and running a vehicle is expensive, beyond the reach of many, particularly those within our service. We are committed to protecting the interests of the hall users, notably the most vulnerable groups and the wider community. We are not looking to increase risks, which is managed through our allocation policy, carrying out careful assessments of people moving into the homes to ensure this is the most appropriate location and form of provision for them, and that they are ready to embark on this step of their journey towards independence. We will work closely with the local authority and other key stakeholders to ensure the continued monitoring and management levels for this project are met, and we respond swiftly to any issues raised. We will be visible 7 days a week, providing a tailored package of support delivered by professionals to enable clients to maintain their home and be a good neighbour. We will establish focus groups and drop-in sessions, allowing open communication and ensuring feedback is heard and responded to. We will support vulnerable members of the local community first, with those evidenced of local connection who are ready to move on.
That's it. Thank you, please. Okay. Thank you very much for the time for taking the council stay. Thank you. That's the end of the speakers on this. I now need to go to the members. Please, could I just ask the public gallery, while we debate this, if anything gets said against your wishes, please do not barrack the members of this committee. They have a right to be heard. Neither of the members for Glastonbury are here. Thank you, Paula. Neither of the members are here. One has sent apologies and Nick has excused himself from the chamber. I've been asked by our legal team, or one of them, costs. To remind everybody that the tilted balancing costs in going against recommendations, you know, in relation to, you know, the housing needs, etc., for the area. Is that fair enough? Thank you.
Yeah, I can come in and
Yes, certainly,
do
Paul.
that
If you'd
if
like
you want
to
to.
speak, please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So I know you've, good afternoon, members. You haven't met me before, but I'm Paula, one of the legal team. I know you've been advised before by Martin about Area East having a lack of housing land supply, and so that our deemed policies in the development plan are out of date. So therefore, the tilted balance is engaged. So just to remind you, in this application and any of the other housing ones later on, that means that you should only refuse applications if the adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. And then if I can remind you as well, or just be mindful when you're debating, obviously the decision is yours, but if you are refusing against officer's recommendation, just to have clear, precise planning reasons that can be evidenced so that there would hopefully be no successful cost application against the council. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. First speaker is Alistair. Welcome to the Mendip area, Alistair. Nice to have you back.
Thank you, Chair, councillors and public gallery. I should just say, first of all, I'm not from this area in Burnham-on-Sea and Highbridge, and I'm a stand-in from another councillor, just so you understand. Firstly, I thank the legal advisor for the information about the refusal. I fully understand that. And I know that's absolutely correct, spot on. I don't even know how this could possibly have got this far, to be honest with you. That's my personal opinion. Okay, if I'm reading this right, it's unfair, first of all, to stigmatise people who may be in these houses to say they won't have a vehicle or a car. You can't say that at all. So just let's assume for a minute that they did. They had 4 vehicles. That renders the car park null and void if they're all parked there at the same time. So I'm not going to drone on about the car park because everybody has, and quite rightly so. Everything they're saying is correct as far as I see it. But if the community hall cannot park there, as the people have pointed out, it's going to become a complete non-entity. It'll finish. It will just go away eventually. And the shop at the front perhaps maybe has to use that too. And somebody pointed out that that would probably go down the pan as well. I do not know how this has got this far. I can't lend it my support, and I think everything they've said, and I have to take it at face value because I'm not from here, it's absolutely correct. So at this moment, before anybody else speaks, just as I see it, I can't really support this at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Benty, you're next to speak, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chairman. I just want to say that, first of all, I cannot understand on normal circumstances when we sit here and highways are happy for things to go on that we are in disagreement. We are being told we are not highway specialists, so we have got to accept what highways are saying. Now highways are saying no, and now we are told that the planning side thinks that it is a minor detail that what is left that highways will not accept. So you are basically stopping us no matter whether it's this side or it is that side. And that is a very uncomfortable situation to be in. Personally, I think this here is a disgrace. You have got a community that is functioning, everything is fine, but down to parking and robbing a center of their parking spaces, shops of their parking spaces, people of their tranquility of living in the area, you are saying, no, 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 we don't give anything about what highways are saying. Of course we can build. And I will say, I am against that. You cannot have it both ways. It has got to be what the people in Glastonbury want. Furthermore, when it comes to it is local people that needs housing. Oh yes, it is. But not in Shepton Mallet when one of our pubs were made into housing for people in need of housing. Then it was not, and they are not local. So I'm sorry, the housing group of people, I don't trust what you are saying, because living in Shepton has proven it is not so. So I cannot support this application, no way.
Thank you very much, Benty. I'm going to call Emma Meacham in from Highways, as Benty raised a Highways issue there. Emma, are you online, please?
Good afternoon, Edric. Yes, I am.
Good. Could you answer, Benty raised issues about the highways and parking, and highways, I think, in the end, supporting this. Could you just give the highway stance on this, please?
Yeah, the last lot of comments that were sent through, I think Ed updated you at the end of his presentation. We are content that there is now turning on site. We have not been provided the information that the displacement of parking would not lead to harm. As such, that still remains an issue for us, but it's for the planner to decide whether that's an issue that overrides the benefits of the scheme in as a whole.
Stay on. Thank you very much, Emma. I believe Simon wants to come in, please. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And again, just for members' clarification, obviously Emma set out the Highway Authority's comments on the application. So just in case you didn't understand what she said that she's comfortable that the applicant has demonstrated that the site can be accessed properly in terms of the range of vehicles that will be using it. Obviously, the layout that Ed showed as part of his presentation confirmed to you that there would be 7 spaces provided. What we've had to do as officers, and we've set out our view in the report pack, is to balance the harms against the benefits. And again, you've heard from the council's legal officer, because of the 5-year supply position and the date of the adoption of the local plan, we have to complete that balance. So we've completed the balance and we've set out our view in the report. And what you have now got to do, you've also got to complete the balance. You've seen that we have confirmed that the benefits of providing this type of housing as proposed, in our view, we think that's a significant benefit. We've recognised the harms about the change to the car parking arrangements. Again, you've heard quite passionately from local people. They've told you the extent to which the streets in the neighbourhood are parked, and they've told you about how important the hall is for their community. And no doubt you'll have visited the site and you'll be able to take a view as to whether or not you think the site can function with the minimal level of car parking that's proposed. Of course, you don't need to drive to the hall when you're going to use it, and especially given its location at the heart of the community, I'm sure there will be some instances when people use the hall's facilities and don't drive. But we've had to take a judgment and we've had to weigh the benefits against the harms, which is why we're making the recommendation to you. And now that's something that you've got to do.
Thank you, Simon. Benty, is your comment a response, or would you like to come back in later on the list? Okay, thank you. I'd like to call Alan Boyd in to speak now, please.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. Just want to ask a question, first of all, about the number of parking spaces that would be lost to this development, and if it does get the go-ahead, and if the 4 parking spaces proposed for residents aren't actually used or needed by any of the residents, would they be available for the community in the hall to be used? And also, then, if it does go ahead, then where are the people using the hall who park there at the moment? Where would they park? Is there any solution, or is it just dissipated in the busy streets surrounding? So there's my questions. But also, I'm just feeling really desperately sad about this, because it's pitting a trusted, valued homeless charity that tries to do the best for homeless people in the region against the local community who desperately want to save their hall. And it's a really indictment of our times that this has come this far, that the charity seems to have nowhere else to propose housing take 4 people off the street and put them in a home. And this is the conflict, that the current situation we're in nationally as well pits us people against each other here, and it shouldn't be this way. But thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Ed to confirm the parking arrangements, please, and clarify for the board, parking arrangements for the hall with or without those parking spaces for the residents or potential residents.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Yeah, so just to clarify those points. So the current situation, you'll have seen the photos of the car park. It's not actually marked up, so it's difficult to identify exactly what its capacity is. You'll have probably seen as well photos of it packed out with cars. You might have seen in the report that according to highways, if it were to be designed in a way that was acceptable, so you could get in and out in a highways compliant way, let's say, it would have a capacity of 11 parking spaces now. So when we compare to what's proposed, that would be 7. And sorry to add as well, the current situation is just unrestricted parking for whoever. So for what's proposed, it would remain as unrestricted, but 7 spaces. So it's not divided up, sort of 4 for the units and 3 for the hall or anything. It's just unrestricted. And the other part of the question, sorry, Vice Chair, could you remind me?
Sorry, it's the shortfall. So can I just come in? So you're saying there will be 7 spaces left? Yes, after the build.
Yeah.
How many spaces are there for residents? So is it 7 spaces for general use?
It's.
I'd like to ask actually, can members of the public gallery stop approaching the table with extra information? I don't think that's allowed, is it, Simon? Or illegals? No. So please, could you come and collect your phone, please? And I think, John, you should actually know better than to approach the table with ancillary information. It's not allowed. I was concerned about it earlier. So please don't do that. Whilst your passion is, considerate. Okay, all right. Well, it's understandable. Please don't do it. Thank you. It's not allowed. Thank you. Sorry, Ed, we were at 7 spaces for the public. Yes. So, and how many spaces for the units on top of that?
So 7 spaces total.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Unrestricted, so it could be for public or could be for residents. And against the combined requirements for those units plus the community hall, which is based on its floor space, that would need 12 to 13 spaces. So we're looking at that shortfall compared to the 7 that would be provided.
Thank you. Yeah, please, guys, please don't approach the table with any more information. I've said it sort of flusters people when you get things stuck, and you did it to the officer while he was doing his presentation. Please don't do it. As I said, I appreciate your passion, but leave it out. Thank you, Adam. I hope that clarifies things. Simon, do you want to come again as well?
What Ed's just clarified, if you look at the recommended conditions that we're suggesting you might like to consider, and the last condition, because again, it's appreciated that the situation's not ideal, but as Ed has said, the shortfall is not as significant as it's been suggested to you. So there would be a total of 15 spaces to comply with, up to 15 spaces to comply with what the hall would require to be served if it was being considered afresh, and what the 4 units would be required to provide in accordance with the council's parking standards. So there is a shortfall. We're recognising there's that shortfall, but again, to try and give some control, and you've heard from the representative speaking for Julian House that their estate that they operate to date, I forget what the figure was, but it's from what she said, it's unlikely that more than one of the spaces would be required to be occupied by the occupiers of the units. So we've got the site management plan requirement as condition 8, and that's the way in which we can work with the providers to make sure that the maximum amount of car parking is made available for the community to respect the needs of future residents as well. So there is a shortfall. We recognise that, and what we've had to do is balance how harmful that is.
Thank you. I mean, the question seems to be quite an important question, like something maybe people can't answer, because it says 11 officially designated if spaces could fit in that car park. The hall would require 15, but there seems to be a lot more that can fit in at the moment because it's unmarked. And that's a difficult question. That's a difficult one because there's maybe no official figure for that, but people who know and use the site can see how many they can get in. So the loss would be quite a lot more in reality than it would be in official figures, because you can fit more than 1 or 2 spaces for cars in the footprint of each dwelling, can't you? Clearly. So is it possible to understand how many cars actually do fit into that? So we know what the actual capacity is.
The difficulty comes down to the fact that it's unrestricted car parking at the moment. So, you know, there could be an event on at the hall and there might be 12 local residents parking in there. So there'd be no car parking for the people that come to use the hall. So not only is it unrestricted, it's also not marked out. I mean, I've been to the site numerous occasions and I have to say it, every occasion there hasn't been any cars parked there at all. Ed's probably been to the site. Local residents have been showing pictures to the chair and the vice chair reflecting high levels of car parking. What we've tried to do is tell you what the council's adopted car parking standard would require for a hall the size that the hall is and the 4 residential units, tell you what the shortfall is, and then we've then weighted that shortfall in terms of the extent to which it would affect the level of car parking provided, and then also to build in an effect on how it would affect the usability of the community hall.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Adam, I'm going to go to somebody else now if you finish, please. I have 4 more speakers. From the way I'm reading this meeting, most of the issues seem to be over the level of parking. So I'd like people to, you know, think about that before they speak in terms of keeping the debate succinct, all those whilst having your say. I have 4 more speakers, starting with Martin Dimmery, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman. We've heard some very eloquent reasons from residents, from trustees, from the town council, many of whom I'm sure are very compassionate people who understand the issues regarding homelessness. But if we're being asked to present a reason for not proposing this, I think the demonstrative reason is it would undermine the use of a community facility which is utterly necessary in the area. And therefore, I'm proposing that we refuse this application.
Thank you, Councillor Dimmery. Councillor Hyde, are you wishing to second that proposal? Okay, so we do have a substantive motion on the table, which I'm sure Paul is making a note of, proposed by Councillor Dimmery, seconded by Councillor Hyde to refuse against officer recommendation. Thank you very much. Bensi, it's your turn to speak next, or is that what you wanted to do? Okay, thank you. Councillor Dunk, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with a lot of the things that have been said by other councillors, members of the board. It's very unfortunate that these 2 projects can't really coexist, in my opinion, because of the loss to the community. And if you imagine that you're put into a small 1-bedroom unit and you've got problems, I think having visitors has not been thought about in the way that old folks' homes don't tend to think you're going to have a car, but they should cater for visitors. And that's just an added exacerbation of the situation where you've got high parking need, generally speaking, for a community a hall. But this is just going to make that untenable from what I can hear. And I have to trust the community and Glastonbury Town Council that they know their area. So I'm prepared to vote that we don't approve this.
Thank you, Michael. Simon, please.
Proposal there and Councillor Dunk's support of it. I've just written down the loss of the majority of the unrestricted car parking from the site would undermine the future use of the community hall, which would significantly and demonstrably harm, which would significantly and demonstrably outweigh, the benefits of the residential units proposed. That's effectively what I think Councillor Demery has suggested.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, eloquently put, Simon. That's why I read it as well. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think the people over here have already said this is a very sad state of affairs. We've got 4 people that we have to try and look after. So we're asking for an application to be approved to look after these 4. But what about the 60 or 70 that rely on the village hall for their community, for their well-being, for their social life? I think it's a very sad choice to make, but I think the village hall has to win.
Thank you, Barry. I'd like to, just before Dawn comes in, I think next time I spoke, not that you've probably fed at me already. I know the area quite well. A friend of mine lived there many years ago. I used to have a window cleaner around which took in that area. And I know what the parking's like outside the shops in Wimble Hill. I got my van hit by a bus once. I am well aware of the parking issues around the area, and I'm not happy about it for the same reason as everybody else. I think parking is the main concern as raised by the residents, and so I will probably go with the flow as I see the way these meetings are going, although I'll still wait to see what everybody else says, but it looks like we're going towards a refusal, I would guess. Dawn, would you like to speak next, please?
Yeah, I think the core of why we are councillors is about community. And I think for most of us sitting around this table, the community comes first, really, when we're thinking about the majority. And therefore, I'd like to second Martin's proposal. Oh, have you? Okay, then.
I'm fine now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think I know where this is going. I think I'll take one more comment from Councillor Lovell, and then I will move to the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. What I'm hearing is that if it's possible to have a 3-way tilted balance, work that one out. That's what we have. There is the interests of the community, the interests of presumably housing, and the fact that we don't have the supply, and just as important, the provision of for the homeless. I suppose this is where I need to refer to our legal person is what sort of comeback are we likely to have? Are we talking seriously about an appeal that we might lose? I mean, there's always the risk of that, but is that really the situation we have here if we decide to refuse this? Thank you.
It's the applicant's right to make an appeal if they're unhappy with the outcome of the decision. So yes, it's a reality that could happen, but it's the evidence and the grounds upon which you are putting forward, really, and it's going to be a decision of an inspector when it comes before them if it is appealed.
Please come back, Councillor Lovell.
If I come back, I think that anybody looking through this portal will see the ambivalence from the highways. I mean, okay, the highways has now come out with a new view, but people are going to say, well, hang on, these people weren't very happy with this. How's that going to stand? You know, is that really going to work? And haven't we got a fairly hefty defence with that particular history of the viewpoint on the way this application has gone through? Thank you.
We need a final word from Paula, I think, possibly on that one, then I will go to a vote, please.
I don't think we can preempt any decisions being made going forward. You have to decide on what you've heard today and put forward your, there is a proposal on the table, so you need to make your decision on what you've heard from presenters, the objectors, the applicant's agent, etc., and just make your decision, and the rest is up to the rights given to the applicant to make an appeal if they are unhappy.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Simon and Paula, would you like to read out in technical speak the reasons for refusal before I go to the vote?
The loss of the majority of unrestricted car parking from the site would undermine the future use of the community hall, which would significantly demonstrably outweigh the benefits of the provision of the residential units as proposed. And you probably then refer to policies DP 17 and DP 9 probably. But again, if you agree that reason and then delegate the policies for us to put in, we will make sure that we do that for you.
Thank you very much, Simon. So we have a motion on the table to refuse against DOCA recommendation proposed by Councillor Dimry, seconded by Councillor Height. So all those in favour of refusal, please. Thank you very much, Board. That's unanimous vote to refuse the proposal. Thank you kindly. Could somebody call the chair back in, please? As somebody has gone to the bathroom, would anybody else like quickly 2 minutes to go to the bathroom? I know it's a bit early, but as we've got a natural break whilst lots of people leave, if anybody else needs to go to the bathroom now, this seems like an ideal opportunity to take. Thank you.
Okay, we're about to start now, Anna, are we?
Hopefully, Chair, yes.
Oh, brilliant.
Sorry about that.
It happens. Thank you.
Okay, so this application, it did come to committee last time. So just to explain, we realised after the event that there was an administrative error. So the letters to interested parties that went out about the planning committee stated that the item would be heard in July. So some people didn't have an opportunity to be part of the debate. So that's why we brought the application back to planning committee, because we hadn't issued the decision notice.
I just asked legal. So those of us who voted on this last time, does this leave us predetermined on the item? Could Paula clarify that in case anybody else listening or in the public gallery raises that one? Is that not an issue?
Response. I think what you've got to consider, members, is that last time when the application was presented to you, you didn't have the thoughts of the speakers who are going to address you today. So effectively, that's new material that you didn't have take into account when you last considered the application. I don't know if Paula thinks there's anything else that you need to consider.
No, I think as long as you're happy as members, those that were here and voted, that you can come with an open mind today and listen to those points and take notice of those and put those to your what you've already read and what you've already heard previously, then I think you're absolutely fine.
Okay, thank you. That's what it seems. I just wanted to.
Okay, so you happy with that, Edric? Yeah.
I just wanted to.
Okay, so we can move on then. Okay, back to you, Anna.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this application is land at the orchard on Vicarage Lane in Norton St Philip. It's for the change of use of agricultural land to residential to include the erection of a single-storey dwelling house. So here's the location plan with the site edged in orange and the development limits of Norton St Philip in red. So it's worth just noting at this point that the application has been submitted as a DP24 application. DP24 is a policy that is specifically for they're called single plot exception sites for self and custom build. And it has a number of criteria attached to it. The reason for me highlighting the 100-metre gap here is because one of the criteria is that it should be connected to the main settlement. So as officers, we consider this 100-metre distance is excessive, and therefore we consider the application to be effectively outside of development limits and an isolated dwelling. So here's the site plan with the site edged in red and the rest of the land in the applicant's ownership in blue. Existing site plan that shows how the site's laid out currently with allotment, vegetable plots, parking area. And then how the house is proposed to sit within the site in that green colour there. So also to note that the site area is 0.25 hectares, which is beyond the requirement in DP 24 of 0.1. And then we've got the floor plans. And again, the floor area is beyond that that's expected in DP 24 of 140 square metres. And then we've got the elevation plans. And then here's an aerial view of the site showing the application site on the western end and then the extent of further land in the applicant's control to the east. There's photos of the access route and part of the bin storage would need to be at the bottom of that access route away from the dwelling. And then there's other photos generally of the site. So as I mentioned, it's been submitted as an application in relation to policy DP24. I set out there the key criteria for DP24, and from officer's point of view, it fails on 3 of those 4 criteria. We don't consider that it's part of or adjacent to the main settlement. It's excessive in terms of the floor space and the site area, and we don't consider that the design is in harmony with the character of the local area. And there's just the reasons for refusal. So one is the failure against DP24, and the second is the design and scale impact on the character of the area. Putting aside DP24, if you're satisfied that it doesn't comply with DP24, then the next test would be whether you're happy with whether it's an isolated dwelling. Normal circumstances, officers would recommend that this location is too remote, and therefore, irrespective of the tilted balance, we would say that the harms outweigh the benefits. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anna. And now we move on to the public speakers, and the first one will be Barbie Lunns, please. No, Barbie, we have a set routine. You come to take your place and you speak.
Okay. Can I go? Yes? Okay, my name is Barbara Lund. I'm a resident of Norton St Philip, and I would like to speak in support of the application. And I had hoped that the applicant would speak first because he is going to say stuff about the size of the plot and of the house, but I will start with that in any case. Firstly, it's essential to know the correct dimensions of both house and plot. As you have heard, the officer report states that the internal floor space of the house is 156 meters squared. The applicant states it is 130 meters squared, as does the parish council, which agrees with this. The report states that the plot size is approximately 0.25 hectares. There is an orchard, which is that size. However, within the orchard, the applicant has outlined a garden, and that garden occupies 0.05 hectares, half the allowable size. In order to make the proper decision, the committee must know which are the correct set of measurements. The report states that the creation of a dwelling in the front section of the site could have a detrimental impact on the management and maintenance of the orchard. The applicant currently manages and maintains the orchard while living in Falkland, about 2.5 miles away. I suggest that the management and maintenance would be made considerably easier if the family lived on site. The report states that the provision of a dwelling on this site, isolated from the nearest village, would foster a growth in the need to travel by private car and lead to unsustainable development. Currently, the applicant has to travel to work on the site on a daily basis. If he lived on site, his travel would be reduced, not increased. The site is not isolated. Although it is outside the village development limit, about 91 metres, as I understand, it is about 250 metres from the preschool and primary school, which the applicant's children attend, so they would be able to walk to school. It is also considerably closer to the village shop than my house, and I live within the village development limit. The site is not isolated. There's a minor point about refuse collection, but I don't think I have the time to go into that now, but that is easily resolved, and there is room for this, the lorries to turn. In summary, although the site is not adjacent to the village, it is only 91 metres from the village development limit. The development fulfills all the other criteria set out in DP24. As the officer put up there, she only put up 4 criteria. There are other criteria that they must demonstrate their own housing need, which the applicants are. They must demonstrate a strong local connection, which they are. I think they fulfill all the other criteria except for...
Could you sort of wind up a bit now, yes, Barbie, please?
I suggest this application for a low impact sustainable dwelling should be supported. The site is extremely well connected to local services. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, Barbie. Good to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time since Mendip. Cheers. The next public speaker is Camilla Wharton, please. And you have 3 minutes as well.
The documents referenced in the case officer's objection apply to our first planning application, which was withdrawn on the 28th of September 2022. They have not referenced the documents from the current application, and therefore their objection is misleading and misinformed. Our proposed development satisfies the criteria set out in DP24 as a single plot exception site for self and custom builds. The case officer has made an objection based on the design and scale of the development. Our proposal is for the erection of a single-storey dwelling on a plot of 500 metres squared, which is half the allowed size according to DP24. The proposed dwelling has internal floor space of 130 metres squared, well within the 140 metres squared size allowance. The internal floor space is clearly outlined in the design and access statement as well as the floor plans. The design of the building is in keeping with the local surrounding properties and maintains the integrity of the visual appeal of Norton St Philip. It is clad in local stone with a slate roof and larch cladding in the apex of the west-facing gable ends. These materials are repeated throughout Norton St Philip. Furthermore, the house is a single storey and therefore will have very low visual impact on the surrounding village. The case officer has made an objection based on the location of the proposed development, stating it is outside of the 5 principal settlements and therefore does not comply with CP1. DP24 states, exception sites must be well related to a recognisable named rural settlement, and Norton St Philip is included in the table of recognised named settlements set out in the DP24 SPD. It also states that a settlement is a relationship between different properties. The limits of the settlement are defined by where that relationship peters out. Larger settlements have a wider pull or sphere of influence than the small settlements, influencing the relationship between a site and the settlement. Norton St Philip is recognised as a primary village in accordance with CP1 and as such is a larger settlement with a wide pull and sphere of influence. The development site is 91 metres from the settlement boundary. It is at the end of a recognised lane along which 4 other properties reside, 3 of which were built in the last 10 years. The land between the proposed plot and the nearest house is village amenity land, whereby residents are encouraged to walk, play and access the wider village, avoiding roads. It can therefore be argued that a strong relationship between the proposed development site and the nearest properties will be maintained by this area of amenity land. The case officer refers to the site being in an isolated position from the nearest village, which would foster a growth in the need to travel by private car. This once again highlights they have not considered the design and access statement, within which we highlight that our 3 children attend the school in Norton St Philip, which is 285 metres from the site. The local shop and post office is 418 metres from the site, and the bus stop is 650 metres from the site, all walking distance. Our application is for a low impact, off-grid, sustainable home for our family, which will enable us to continue contributing to the village that my husband was born in and has lived in for 45 years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and that appears to be well timed. Thank you. The next person we have is Barbara Day. Please. And you also have 3 minutes, Barbara.
So I've been resident in Norton St Philip for nearly 50 years. I know the community pretty well, and I am in support of this application. I'm also extremely concerned about climate change and of the impact it will have on us now and future generations. And I believe that one way forward is to create resilience in regard to this and a new attitude to housing. And there's increasing discussion in the media about the need for small, low-impact, eco-friendly housing. Chris Wharton, by building his own small holding on his own small holding and orchard land, would fit this criteria exactly and should be encouraged. It will enable him to produce food for his family and also supply the local community. And at some stage, we are going to have to stop the long supply lines that we rely on with supermarkets. We've had our fair share of overpriced large houses that only the rich can afford in our village. Chris was born in Norton St Philip and has spent most of his life there. And we need more housing for local young people. And this kind of low carbon, low impact, self-built housing that we're discussing will contribute to that. I'd like to respond to 2 objections to this project. It's already been mentioned that the site is remote. It is no way remote, and the couple and the family can move to all village, walk to all village amenities. And by living there, they will reduce the car travel. The other point that needs to be made, there was a comment about it didn't fit in with the building in the village, the look of it. Well, it's very well hidden. It would have no visual impact at all. And I'd like to point out that there are some other developments that have been approved that maybe don't fit in either. 3 closest residents to the proposed building fear an increase in traffic along the lane, leading to the proposed development. And as we've already said, if the family live on site, there's going to be less car travel. So I would just commend this development to the committee as a creative and necessary step forward in a new approach that we desperately need to rural housing and community planning to make us resilient for the future that is facing us. Thank you.
And thank you, Barbara. Cheers. Next, we have Councillor Ian Hassel from the Parish Council. And thank you, Ian. You have 3 minutes also, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Ian Hazel and I am the Chairman of Norton St Philip Parish Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this agenda item. The Parish Council chose to support this application after extensive debate, and I will assume that you have already read our statement of support. I've lived in the village for more than 45 years, and the Wharton family had already been here for some time when we arrived. In a small village like ours, You quickly get to know most people, and I've known the family all the time I have lived here. Chris Wharton's parents have owned this plot of land for many years, and it's currently in use as a large vegetable plot and adjoining orchard. Chris and his wife Camilla and their 3 children are currently renting in a neighbouring village. They would obviously like to live in the parish in which Chris grew up, and which would enable them to look after this plot more easily. House prices in our village are now very high. For example, 3 new 2-bedroom detached houses are listed currently as offers in excess of 600,000, a sum far out of reach for most families. It's extremely difficult for those brought up in our village to buy their homes here. This application would enable the applicants to build their own affordable home using land that they already cultivate and is within the family ownership. DP24 was designed to meet a specific need to deliver rural affordable housing for those that cannot otherwise afford to live in areas where they have a strong local connection. It is the PC's view that this application is justified by that policy. It's true that the site does not immediately join with the village development limit, but the site does lie very close to the limit. The proposed house would be built to the most stringent eco-credentials, would not be easily visible from anywhere within the village, i.e. it would have little or no impact. And importantly, and as already mentioned, I disagree with the case officer who states that the size of the house to be 156 square metres. Independent measurements suggest the size of the house as amended to be 130 square metres, well within the DP24 suggested maximum of 140. For all of these reasons, I would ask you to support this application. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Hazel. And I apologise for calling you Councillor Hassel earlier. I think I made that mistake once before as well, I recall, because of the S instead of a Z. Okay, thank you. Cheers. And next we have the applicant's agent, Chris Water, is it? Yeah. And you also have 3 minutes.
We meet the eligibility criteria for this policy. I have a strong local connection to the village. I was born in the village, attended the local school and have set up a successful landscaping and groundsworks business in the village. I am the contractor for the majority of the village amenity land. My parents still live in the village and our 3 children attend the local school and preschool in Norton St Philip. We are in housing need and we have the means and skills to be able to build a sustainable, low-impact family home in our orchard. The case officer raises an objection because the wider orchard is a priority habitat. The orchard was bought by my family over 30 years ago. There were 9 apple trees in the field which were planted in 1908, which are now coming to the end of their life. There are over 60 semi-mature trees in the field which were planted by myself and my parents. If it were not for my stewardship, then this primary habitat would not exist. And without my continued stewardship, it will cease to exist. Our family building a low-impact, sustainable home will preserve the priority habitat for generations to come. We are in housing need. We currently rent a 3-bedroom property in Falkland, which is unsuitable for our family. It has black mould growing in all 3 bedrooms, which has been the cause of hospitalisation for our son Bertie due to breathing difficulties. There are currently no 3-bed properties to rent on Rightmove within 5 kilometres of the site. The case officer objects, saying that the design is unlike traditional build designs within the locality. DP24 states, self and custom built housing is an element of the government's housing strategy that aims to diversify the delivery of housing. It defines a custom build as a home built to the plans or specifications decided by the occupant. This policy not only allows for but encourages uniqueness in design. Whilst we have been sympathetic to the local design by using the same materials, there are elements of the design which are integral to the functionality of an off-grid house. For example, the arrangements of the windows serves to harbour the heat from the sun, warming internal walls and providing overnight heating by way of thermal mass. She also states that domestic planting would have an adverse effect on the habitat. The orchard is already a market garden with massive biodiversity, which would only be by us being able to live there and fulfil our wider plans of growing produce to sell to the community. The reality is our piece of land is 1,000 times stronger in biodiversity than the farmland next door, and that is as a direct result of the impact on the land. The case officer's argument against DP24 seems to rely solely on the interpretation of the size of the development, and therefore their argument has no validity. The proposal meets all of the criteria set out in DP24 with regard to design, scale, location, eligibility and housing need. Whilst we recognise this policy is assessed on a case-by-case basis, DP24 places greater weight on the opinion of the Parish Council due to it being a policy that differs from settlement to settlement. We have the full support of the Parish Council. Thank you for your time.
And thank you very much. I'm sorry I called you the agent. You are actually the applicant.
I am, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So we've heard the public speakers. We now have the division members or ward members, whichever we're going to use. And the first one, I'm going to go in alphabetical order because they're both on the committee, is Adam, please.
Right, thank you, Chair. And I think last time we've seen this already, of course, but last time the applicants and the Parish Council were not informed of the correct date of the committee. They were told it was July. I saw the letter at the Parish Council that evening. So a few emails later, and they've been invited to this one. So that's great. And I think we see the value of having applicants and supporters and so on, and parish councils to the meeting, because they provide new information, they provide different arguments to the case officer in the report, and they provide different information to allow both sides to be seen. So it's persuaded me that this is a sustainable development. This is a low impact development. I've been to site, I've seen the location, it's at the end of a lane. It's a short walk, safe route to school, short walk to the school. It's a lane on the edge of the settlement. It's not disassociated with it. It's not far from it. It's a short walk. And if they're going to go to the school, they're going to walk there. They're not going to drive. So it's not going to increase traffic. There's an argument about the floor space and the site size. So I'd like the officers to just clarify whether the report is right or whether the applicants are right at when we do clarifications. But in any case, the applicants are eligible. I think it's a decent location to build under this policy. It's not adjacent to the village limit. It's one field away. It's 91 metres away. As long as the future occupation mechanism can be secured, which is a requirement, I think, then the only issue is the design and scale. And if we're talking what's the difference between 130, 140, 156 square metres, it's no great consequence for our deliberations, I believe. Officers have to say what they think, but we can say, well, it's a much of a muchness, really, as to how big it is. It's tucked away. There's no visual impact on anything around. There's no particular views which are going to be spoiled. No one else would see it, as far as I can see. So I'd like to propose, subject to the clarification, I'd like to come back with a proposal if those figures can be clarified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so in terms of the floor area, it's worth pointing out on the policy, it does state that dwelling size will not normally be permitted to exceed 140 square metres. Obviously, there's been a bit of a difference in opinion as to what the internal floor area is, and we can't scale off with here in the meeting right now. But obviously that does give some sort of flexibility. In terms of the plot area, I think there's been a confusion between the extent of the applicant's ownership and the actual red line site. Be that as it may, from the officer's point of view, we still consider there is a conflict, even if those two were accepted. We do still feel there's conflict in terms of it not being within the settlement or adjacent to the settlement. But obviously that is when you're considering it against DP24, and it might be that members feel that if they're convinced from what I'm hearing in the discussion about whether it's sustainable, they're happy that it's a sustainable site, and considering the tilted balance as well in favour, it might be preferable that the application is recommended favourably on the basis of it being a suitable dwelling in the countryside, rather than that it follows DP24.
Okay, thank you. Adam, does that clarify for you?
It does. May I make a proposal?
Yeah, give away your proposal.
Or Dawn, do you want to go first?
Oh, we're going to
Well,
go.
I'd like to recommend approval against officer recommendations.
Do you have your reasons?
This is a sustainable development, as in it is closely located to the village and within walking distance of a school, and of a low impact design, and all other matters being acceptable.
Okay, thank you, Adam. We're going to move to Dawn now for her turn.
Thank you. I would like to second that, simply because I think there's something quite special about a family making their heritage in a village and having strong connections to a village and having their children raised in the village, and hopefully making a home for themselves where they might want to stay in that village when they get older. And I think, just the vision of children picking their own apples off the tree and being able to skip along to school, I think is enough reason for them to make this their family home. So, I'd like to second Adam's proposal.
All right, thank you for that, Dawn. So we now have the proposal. That's good. Seconded as well as proposed. Next, we move on to Councillor Mick Dunk, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've never been called Councillor Mick before. It's an honour. Yes, I think the slight confusion about the area of the building. Is it the outside area? Is it the inside area? And does it include that link that's between the two buildings? It does lead to potential confusion, and maybe it's not significant in the scheme of things, perhaps. And the area of the plot, again, confusion there. Is it the garden that's important, or is it the plot? And I think in spirit, I think we can see that the development is sensible, I think, and the result is sensible. And although the design isn't the same as all the cottages in Norton St Philip, should it be? I don't think we want a pastiche of a cottage, really. And it's single story, very sensibly sits into the landscape a bit more. So I'm prepared to support Adam and Dawn.
Thank you, Mick. Next one is Alistair. Please.
Thank you, Chair. I won't say too much because everyone's been summed up correctly anyway. Sometimes in life, rules are there to be broken. And you would not have to break too many for this, because in the balance of probabilities, the plus points vastly outweigh any minus points. So I'm full in favour of this. Just one quick question, because of the rural connection and where it actually is. Has anybody allowed for a back box or back boxes, just considering where the property is? Is that a consideration or not?
Yeah, Anna, would you be able to answer that one for him? Alistair, please.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we did move towards approval, then officers would normally request that we have delegated authority to look into the conditions in more detail. Just looking back through, so yeah, so I can see that there was an ecology survey done. So we would look to that ecology survey to see what recommendations were within that, in terms of additional conditions that we would put on to ensure that that's
thank you. It's only a question.
Safeguarded. Yeah.
Thank you. Are you happy, Alistair? Okay, we've got Barry next.
Thank you, Chairman. It's really a matter of the mechanics, how we make sure this house remains affordable. How can you ensure that for the next, well, I think it says in perpetuity. I don't really know how we're going to make sure that happens. I'm not very clear about whether this 130 square metres, 140 square metres or 156.5 square metres. I don't know if we're talking about footprint or usable floor area. And I think that should be cleared up if it's important. And the other thing I didn't understand was the connection to the village. Although this is an isolated dwelling, it's too remote. Can an isolated dwelling be too remote from anywhere? is isolated. I don't really understand that definition that you made about the application. Thank you.
Okay, so if you were to approve the application on the basis of DP24, then in terms of future occupation components, we would normally require a Section 106 agreement. That's what we've done with another application of this type elsewhere. If you were satisfied that it, in light of paragraph 11D, in light of the tilt of balance, that it's an acceptable application on balance, and that you were satisfied from a sustainability point of view, then there wouldn't necessarily be a requirement for that legal agreement. But it depends whether you think that that is something that is needed in the planning balance to make the scheme acceptable or not.
Thank you, Anna. Are you happy, Barry? Well, as happy as ever?
No, I'd like to come back on that because it says mechanisms must be in place to ensure the dwelling remains affordable in perpetuity. Now, are we signing a 106? How do you make sure that is kept to in the future? I don't understand the mechanism. I'm not saying we need one. I'm saying if there is one, can you explain to me how the mechanism of it works to ensure that this house always remains affordable?
Okay. Would you like to answer that, Simon?
Yeah, as the policy says, if you were to be recommending approval on the basis that you felt that the application scheme was compliant with policy DP24, you would need to put in place that mechanism to make sure that it remained affordable in perpetuity. And the way in which you would do that would be to grant plan permission subject to a Section 106 agreement, and that Section 106 agreement sets out that very fact. In terms of the mechanism to make sure, how does signing that agreement make sure that it remains affordable in perpetuity? What that would do, that would become a charge on the land. So effectively, if the current occupiers, for whatever reason, decided they wanted to sell the house, they could only sell the house if the future occupier also complied with the DP24 criteria, and that is because of the land charge. So that's the, if you like, that's the way in which the Section 106 legal agreement enforces that it's only occupied as an affordable housing unit. But I think to some extent, the debate and the discussion that you've been having is because you've indicated that although it's outside of the settlement boundary, which defines Norton St Philip, and therefore you can't support it under CP1, CP2 or CP4, you can support it as a dwelling in the open countryside under Para 11 because you think it's overall a sustainable development and a sustainable location for a new house. And if that's your decision, then you don't need to worry about controlling the way in which it's occupied.
Lovely. Thank you, Simon. Barry, are you happy?
Sadly, no.
Yes or no?
No.
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 Oh, okay.
No, I'm unhappy. I just a bit more explanation, please. So does that mean when this house is built, and I think it's a commendable scheme, when the house is built, you would no longer allow any additions to become a bigger house and a bigger house? It would have to stay as you give permission for today. Is that correct?
The effect of the legal agreement wouldn't achieve that. No. Effectively, just to give you an indication, yeah. So if you grant planning permission for a new residential development and you grant that subject to 30% affordable housing, contribution towards education, management and maintenance of open space, the way in which you secure those obligations is by a legal agreement. So the council enters into a legal agreement with the developer, and the purpose of that legal agreement says you can only carry out this development if you pay the affordable housing, the education contribution, and maintain the open space. So the legal agreement in this case would say this house can only be occupied in accordance with policy DP24. So that's the way in which, if you like, the requirement would be enforced.
Thank you, Simon. I think Barry is satisfied now. I can see by his body language, so that's fine. Edric.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, when you talk about securing things through Section 106 and developers, this is a humble home being built by a family we're looking at, not somebody building 50 or 60 houses where you might say, give us 50 grand towards the school, this footpath, this cycle path. There's a couple over there nodding at me who just want a home for the kids in the village they've lived for a long time. Now, in the past, we've had departures from policy where we've allowed people to build houses to look after ailing parents in later life. So we do make departures in villages to keep people where they've grown up and have a long association with. Also, I'm not on a rant, I will shut up a minute. Building, as Michael said, but not having a pastiche, Mick. Did you see the Victorians stick bits on Georgian houses that look Georgian? No, they didn't. They used red brick because they had different building materials. This couple are looking to do the same thing. Not everything in Norton-St-Philip needs to look like it's been there since the 16th century. So I commend this project. I'm happy to go with Adam's proposal that we allow it to be built. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring. Oh, Benty. Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to be absolutely sure that the proposer and the seconder are looking far away from the DP 25 or 24. It was 25, wasn't it? Yeah. So that doesn't come into this here. So the family can have a nice home and not worry about anybody knocking on the door.
Thank you, Benty. Okay, so we have a proposal. Adam, you want to come back before you say anything? Yeah.
Well, I was named. Yes, I think that's the case. Yes, I think Simon said that if we're happy with it as a sustainable development under local plan and national policy, we don't have to link it to the DP24. We don't have to therefore require Section 106. I'm happy to proceed on that basis.
Thank you, Adam. I think we now need to come to Paula before we go to the vote, just to make sure that we understand the wording, etc. And if Paula has any comments to make.
Okay, thank you. I heard, I think, the reason that you were recommending was it's a sustainable development closely located to the village and a low impact design. I don't know if I missed anything or whether the planners want to add anything in there, and then whether, sorry, I'm new to this committee, so do you go through conditions or just highlight condition titles, or I'm not quite sure how it works here.
Would you like to answer?
What we tend to do is that if the members agree the recommendation contrary to the officer's view, so in this case from a refusal to an approval, they make their decision in principle and then they delegate approval to officers to put forward the necessary conditions, which is normally then agreed with the chair, the vice chair and the ward member. That's what we would normally do.
Right, that's fine. I don't know whether, coming back to you, Simon, whether you need to add any policy to what the councillor proposed, and also just to bring in something that Councillor Clark mentioned. He did say about extending the property and whether, I know you just said it can be delegated down to you, but whether the councillors need to have a say on whether permitted development rights need to be taken away from this type of development.
Yeah, again, members, obviously you've got the proposal from Councillor Boylan seconded by Councillor Denton. At the moment, that's on the basis that it's considered to be a sustainable form of development in a sustainable location, low impact design, no harms identified, and we would design the policies to support that decision accordingly. If you want also to at this point in the decision restrict permitted development opportunities in the future for the occupiers and any future occupiers, we can impose a necessary condition to do that. So I think that's what effectively you've just been asked, if you want to include that within your recommendation today.
Thank you, Simon. Go back to Adam and see what he's got to say quickly on that one.
I don't see why we need to do that about restricting permitted development. I don't see why. No reason. Thank you.
Okay, so you're leaving it as it stands. You happy with that, Dawn? Okay, thanks. We just need to have a quick word with Martin here. Who's,
Just
Martin
on the
D.
assumption, as I accept that the developer, the applicant, is maintaining the size of the property, and that you delegated authority is therefore implicit that's the size that you will go to.
I think what we would normally do if you were concerned about the size of the development, and sometimes you approve, or the council approves a new house in quite a close context, so you've got issues of how extending it would affect the occupiers of any neighbouring residents. So in those cases, we would suggest you restrict permitted developments, because if they do an extension, or if they do add to the volume of the building, it might have a detrimental impact on the surrounding area and the neighbours. Here, it's fairly isolated. Again, no one's expressing that as a concern.
Yeah, sorry, I think that's not what I was implying. There was a difference of opinion on what the applicant said about the square footage of the home and what you said. I would give them the benefit of the doubt and would assume that there's implicit delegated responsibility for you to ensure that is the size of the property.
Yeah, what we would do, Chair, is that we would just recommend that the plans that have been submitted, i.e. by the applicant, are those ones that are approved as part of the plan permission. So, yeah.
Okay, so we're all now content. I won't use the word happy. So we can go to the vote. So we know what the Adams thing. Would you like to speak it? Like to say it out, Adam, so everybody's 100% certain?
I think Simon Trafford said it's as I said, recommending approval of submitted plans against officer refusal, recommendation for refusal, because it's a sustainable development in a sustainable location close to the village with low impact on the environment and no harms identified.
That's brilliant.
That's it.
Okay, let's go to the vote. All those in favour of Adams? Okay, that's unanimous, so Paula tells me. So that's great. We can now move on and people can go and build their eco-friendly house. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 7, which is 17 Bath Street in Frome. Convert from offices to 5 flats. Thank you. And that one is being done by Carlton. Lucky chap.
Good.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Afternoon, everyone. Right, the application before you, well, it's 2 applications actually. It's a full planning application and an accompanying application for listed building consent for the works of the building in association with the conversion of the building from an office building, the old St John's ambulance offices in Frome, to 5 number dwellings stroke flats. There's 2 on the ground floor and 2 on the floor above and 1 in the attic. Here's the location plan. So it's on the corner there, Bath Street. So the actual frontage of the building fronts Bath Street. I'll just give you a layout. So on the plans on the left are the current office layout. So the ground floor, the top, the first floor. And then it will be subdivided, and you'll see each floor has 2 flats, ground floor and first floor. And the fifth flat will occupy the generous loft space within the building. And in order to achieve that, we'll need to put in 3 little dormer windows and some roof lights at the back of the building. You'll see from my report that Conservation Officer has negotiated out quite a number of additional openings that had originally been suggested, and we've taken it back to the bare minimum to make it acceptable. Look at the elevations. The top left is as it is currently. You'll see the bottom right and the 2 elevations, front and side. Both those elevations front the street elevations. So not a lot of difference. The key difference with being on the street elevations, you'll see those 3 little dormer windows quite elegantly sort of tucked into the roof there. So it's quite a sympathetic design, which has the support of the Conservation Officer. So these elevations are the ones you don't really see, except from neighbouring properties. Again, very, very little change, but you'll see in the rear elevation there, the insertion of 3 small conservation roof lights. Again, small and sympathetic to the heritage asset. So we got some photographs here to show. The top left there is the main street elevation. Top left of those 6 is the Palmer Street elevation as well. The whole building sort of above the highways on both elevations and accessed via stairs. Some interior. If you read the heritage report accompanying the application, you'll note that the building has been bashed around quite considerably over the years in terms of its previous uses as office accommodation and various other uses. There's not a lot left inside really. What's key is retaining the outside of appearance and how much of an contribution that building makes towards the street scene. And the alterations that are proposed aren't considered to be harmful as to have an impact on that setting. And some final group of photographs again, just showing the inside at the moment, sort of modern type staircases, this and that. So it was quite adaptable. So we're recommending approval with quite a raft of conditions that you'll see with the report in order to make sure that everything's done correctly, including things like using the right materials to ensure that the end residents of the property are afforded a satisfactory environment with regard to noise from any neighbouring uses, etc. These are sort of issues raised by the civic society and the town council, so easily achievable through condition and through the use of appropriate materials, etc. There are other conditions with regard to the storage of bins being in the building, etc., and only taken out on bin days, which is quite an important thing for Frome Town Council at the moment. With a changeover to bins, obviously a lot of people do leave their bins outside, so there is a clear condition which says you can only take them out on bin collection days. So various conditions just make sure that the development sits appropriately in the future within the street and doesn't have an adverse impact on the Frome's character. Okay, that concludes my presentation.
Lovely stuff.
I won't do another one for the building. It's exactly the same.
Okay, yeah, they're both the same, aren't they, sort of thing. So we don't need another presentation from you today. Okay, thank you. So we have one person to speak, which is the applicant or the applicant's agent. Richard Harlow, please. I will be a little bit generous with you because it's 2 applications you've got in. So if you take 4 minutes, that's okay.
I think I should be within, well, maybe a couple of seconds over.
Okay.
Good afternoon, anyway. Our towns are changing. There's now less demand for office space. the regeneration of redundant buildings is essential to maintain a healthy town centre. The planning and conservation officers both support the conversion of the building to residential with minimal changes required. The external appearance is in poor repair and becoming an eyesore. The works will include a much needed makeover, with all the old sash windows being refurbed, walls repaired and new planting. There is a housing shortage nationally, which is being felt particularly acutely here in Frome. Mendip Council does not have a 5-year housing land supply, and as such, the National Planning Policy Framework states that the presumption in favour of sustainable development will apply. Proposals such as this should be supported at every opportunity. The proposal will provide 5 much needed dwellings. I now address the Town Council comments made. Firstly, the layout in reference to fire safety. The design is fully compliant with building regulations. The proposal will go through rigorous checking by building control with all conversion works inspected. This should not be a concern for the planning committee. The dwellings are spacious 1 and 2 bed flats, creating a high standard of living with large floor areas. The dwellings achieve well above minimum space standards. A storeroom has been provided so that all bins remain inside the building except on bin day, and an enforceable planning condition will ensure this. Measures will be taken to ensure bicycles are stored in an organised manner, and flats are also large enough to accommodate cycle storage inside. Whilst the use of steps to put bins out for collection is less than ideal, this is no different to many properties in the likes of Bath, which have similar bin storage arrangements and work on a day-to-day without detracting from a World Heritage Site. Remember, this is an existing commercial premises that already has a waste collection requirement, but does not have an internal bin store. Bins are currently left on the front of the building, detracting from the street and conservation area. This proposal provides a betterment from the existing situation. The proposal is a car-free development supported by Highways Officer. It creates a sustainable development where commercial space is no longer required. The town centre location means it is both normal and necessary for residential and commercial properties to coexist, with amenities of each preserved, which can be achieved. A planning condition will ensure an acoustic report is prepared so the new dwellings achieve an internal noise level suitable for residents, with acoustic dampening measures incorporated into the design. The building has an advantage of thick stone walls and only one window facing a public house parking area. Hope this committee supports its officers' worthy recommendation of approval and appreciates this has come from a comprehensive assessment comparing the development against the relevant planning policy, both at a local and national level, creating a sustainable, deliverable, thoughtful housing scheme at much needed time. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. One little thing. We're no longer Mendip Council. This is Somerset East Planning Committee. Okay, so it might be a good idea to remember that in the future. Right, cheers. Okay, so now we're going to go to the all the Frome people first, which we'll start with Martin Dimery, Martin D.
Thank you. I wanted this to come up because actually I'm not sure. I've seen the rejection of this by the town council and the suggestions by Frome Civic Society. But my feeling about them, having listened to this presentation, is that these problems can be overcome. What I do worry about is this, believe it or not, Frome town centre, particularly on a Friday or Saturday night, is a very vibrant place in a very positive way. I never cease to be amazed when I drop into town. I don't that often, to be honest, but I do. And the restaurants are full, and the pubs are full, and this is right near that area. I would hate to think that some retrospective application would be made to stop music, noise, or any other kind of normal environmental noise that you'd expect in that area from happening, or to prohibit pubs from you having bands or whatever, because there is one quite nearby. That's the one worry I have. if that can be in some way ameliorated, then I'd be likely to go with it, I think.
Chair.
Any ideas on that, Carlton?
Well, it's quite simple. The application we referred to the council's environmental protection officer for his opinion with regard to the development in association with those surrounding uses, as you mentioned, and he's raised no objection to it. There are a number of residential properties all around and above some of those establishments, then there's never any complaints from those. I think when you live in a town like Frome or any market town or any town centre, you've got to expect when you live there that there's going to be an element of disturbance from those natural uses in the town.
But if I may come back, Mr. Chair, we do get them. You know, people move into properties and then start complaining retrospectively about the noise coming out of it, and that's then becomes an issue. The other thing is the fire access that was concerned about, which I'd just like a further comment on that, please.
Yeah, I think if the applicant's agent has spelt that out quite clearly in his presentation, that it meets all the necessary building regulations with regard to fire safety. It's not a planning consideration. If for some reason that they put in for the building regulations after hopefully permission is granted and it isn't appropriate, then obviously they can't carry out the development. It's not a problem for us, you or anyone. They would have to come back and talk to us again and see if there was a legitimate way forward. But again, in historic buildings like this, it's not uncommon to have rear staircases, that sort of thing, fire exits, like a wrought iron thing, etc., installed on the building in order to make that the future of that building viable, especially a historic building.
Okay, thank you, Carlton. Are you satisfied?
Yeah, thank you for coming back. Yeah, I mean, just would like to add a point that this is next to a residential area. It's not actually an old shop that we're talking about here. There's a rows of houses next to it, which I think sways it in some respect. I'm interested to know how we might enforce this issue over the bins.
Does anybody wish to answer that question?
Again, if you read the report and the conditions attached, there's a condition that clearly says that they've got to be stored in the building and except on collection days. Okay.
Okay.
I do read the reports, Mr. Chairman, but I read a lot of reports throughout the week.
Okay, thank you. Now we've got to go to your co-division member or board member, Mick.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm a bit conflicted about this because there are still some outstanding issues. It's I think I'm happy enough with the sound. Although the rear walls are quite thick, there don't appear to be any windows apart from in some of the corridors that face onto the pub at the back. And so that's a bonus. But whatever those walls will protect them from, I don't know. But as you say, we've got flats throughout the centre of Frome having to take their chances. I'm more concerned about the bins because there are 3 flights of stairs to go up to get into the bin store, which is also supposed to be used for bicycles as well. I suspect there may be a conflict of how many bikes you can get in there along with the bins. But as you say, in the flats, there is room to hang your bike on the wall or whatever you want to do with it. So that's not the end of the world, I suppose. There is no room for anything else. I mean, there is no spare space really with this application. It's just the street, pavement and the building. So there is no sort of spare areas that you can use. So I'm still concerned because basically the waste officer objects, the waste management officer objects, and he's not, his objection is still held, I believe. So I'm a bit concerned about, they say it's not good to take bins up and down steps, which I can understand. I don't know how often they lose their wheels, but that will probably be the end result at some stage. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, but obviously we need accommodation as well as we need offices, to be fair. So The fire escape, presumably flat 5 is not our problem. So that should be sorted out at some stage. Yeah, I think there is question mark over whether there was a viability appraisal. There used to be a thing where if you had an office in town and you usually had to prove that it wasn't viable before you turned it into residential. Has that gone? I mean, perhaps I need reminding about this. Has that gone now? That sort of stipulation?
Anybody like to answer that question?
No, it hasn't gone. And if you read the first bit of my report with the principle of development, there's a cumulative advantages of bringing this forward as residential in relation to its current use as offices. And part of that was a marketing exercise done at the time where a lot of people shied away from its continued use as offices for a number of reasons, under pressures of things like disabled access and that sort of thing, because obviously, you know, the whole building is accessed by these sort of very sort of old stone stairs, etc. So it just started, it's come to the end of its life for that sort of use. And, you know, modern businesses are under far greater pressures. And applications for new office accommodation within towns is pretty much zero, with, you know, more and more people working from home, etc. You know, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Right.
So it was a cumulative, lots and lots of reasons.
Thank you.
That we decided that it was a viable use that would, and the key thing was the use would result in that listed building, you know, being.
Okay, thanks for that, Carlton. Mick, you're happy now, are you? Or
Can I just, sorry, Chair, can I just add on that the conservation officer stipulated, I think that there should be only 3 roof lights at the rear and the 3 dormers, but she wants them to be the same size. And that might be a small point to condition, but at the moment, I don't think they're drawn as the same size. I know it looks like they are, but they aren't, because they step out and get slightly deeper as the roof progresses. And I think the conservation officer was hoping she'd rather they were the same.
No,
and there is a condition, I think, that they have to present drawings of the timber work for approval as a condition. But yeah, that's my comment.
Okay, you're finished now, Mick, are you?
Right. I'm going to get an answer to the conservation officer's request.
I don't think we've got a conservation officer here at the moment.
No, but I can answer that.
You can answer it? Go on then.
The roof is pointy at one end and shallow at the other end, right? So if you follow the plane of the roof, it goes down. So if you put a dormer in, there's always going to be an additional back from the dormer. So when you look at the front of the dormers, they're all exactly the same size.
Yeah.
But when they go back, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper because of the shallow pitch of the roof. Yeah.
I get that because I see it from the drawing, but maybe you could have a chat to her and see what she actually means, because it might be very important.
I think she stands corrected on that. I think she didn't quite realise that the roof isn't parallel or perpendicular, etc.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. That's very good. Dawn, you're next in the queue.
Thank you. So I think some of the objections are in relation to storage of bicycles. Not everyone has a bicycle. Waste going up and down stairs. Well, we are trying to reduce our waste. And I think as things progress, we will have less and less that we'll need to take out on the waste day. And also you basically move into a place according to your needs. So if you can't do the stairs and you don't, there's no space for your car to park, you don't live there. It's really quite simple. And also I think it's really important that we bring this building back to life, but also that we keep our town centres alive, because that's the first, issue is once the town centres start dying, then it has a ripple effect. So I think this is really important that we keep this building alive, we get people in there, and if they don't like the noise, they wouldn't live there. If they don't have a bicycle and they you know, then they would want to live there because they don't. But also Frome Town Centre is really well connected. So you wouldn't need transport because you can get the bus, you can get the trains not too far away. So I do think that this, you know, I would like to go with the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Dawn. Adam, you're next.
Thank you. I think Palmer Street in Frome Town Centre is quite a vibrant place, certainly Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, all day Saturday and Sunday as well. And there's restaurants and bars there. There's a restaurant next to the, I think there's residential properties adjacent to this property and above Palmer Street as well. So it's quite mixed use and it's quite busy and fun. If you like eating, I suppose, and drinking. So I don't think there's any problem with this. I mean, I think that the officer presentation dealt with all the issues, and if an acoustic report can come up with internal noise levels that are acceptable, and there's no other reason to refuse this. And if it improves the appearance, internal and external, of a listed building, then it's all good. And I'm happy to second Dawn's proposal to approve in line with officer recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Alistair, I think you wanted to come in.
Excuse me, Simon wants to speak.
Oh, Simon, you'd like to speak first? Yeah.
Yeah, just to remind members, don't forget you've got 2 applications to consider. So when you're making your proposals, are you also proposing on the listed building consent application as well as the planning application?
Yes.
But I presume, Simon, that'll be 2 votes, won't it? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we can now move on to you, Alistair.
Thank you, Chair. Very, very short. Old historical buildings, when they were built, were never meant to be office blocks, ever, in their infancy. To make them into homes, they'll be looked after and probably cared for by the people in the homes. And they should be homes if they're going to be created as anything, and certainly not office blocks. Office blocks change hands. Firms change, firms close down, they move on, other people come in. They don't have the same care and love and attention as homeowners would give them. And I support these people over there, my fellow councillors, and everything they've said. And yeah, I fully support all this. Both applications, by the way, I'm in favour of both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have nobody else wishes to speak. We have a proposal which is from Dawn, I think, and seconded by Adam. So Dawn, would you like to speak out what yours is? I know Paula will come in and just go through it if you like.
No, I don't think I probably need to once you've spoken, but I was just going to say this is for number 7 on the agenda, just to clarify which one we're going for.
Yeah, we do number 7, then we do number 8 afterwards. Okay.
Yeah, just to go with officer recommendation of approval.
Okay, so we're gonna go to the vote on number 7 to start with. All those in favour of Dawn's proposal? Unanimous. And then we might as well do number 8 straight away. I think same proposer, same seconder, and all those in favour. Unanimous again. Well done. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to all the way through to number 9 now, I think, which is land at Windsor Hill, Lanes, Shepton Mallet. Okay, and that's demolition of existing stables and construction of a dwelling and garage. And I think, Carlton, this one is yours as well.
That's right, Chairman. Just give me time to upload it. Right, thank you, Chairman.
Fire away.
So this is application along Windsor Hill, just to the north of Shepton Mallet, well, about just a mile or so north of Shepton Mallet. The application for planning permission for the demolition of the existing stables and a little barn on the site as well. It's more of a shed really, and the construction of a two-storey dwelling house with a detached garage. So this is a sort of a location plan. The one on the left shows the site edged in red there with the stable building on it. Sort of single-storey breeze block construction, quite low impact stabling, typical stable design. And just to right at the north of the site there, you've got a little outbuilding tack room type thing. Diagram on the right shows the demolition of those two buildings and the erection of quite a large two-storey house. So these are the location plans up close. So there's the stable on the left, all gets demolished, and build the house on the right, the garage around the back there. This is for full planning permission, so I'll run you through all the plans and elevations in a minute. As part of the phosphate, because we're in a phosphate catchment area here, they brought up a scheme where they plant an orchard, etc., and that is suitable mitigation in association with the current use of the site, etc., to get around the phosphate issue. And so there's not an issue in that respect. Okay, so these are just the elevations of the stable building. Like I say, single story, lean-to roof, very low impact, can hardly see it over the hedge. Right, so these are the floor plans of the house, quite a large, generous, very generous 3-bedroom house, double garage, large kitchen, utility room, dining room, etc. These are the elevations. Quite a large, generous house. So if we can just take you to sort of typical sort of street scene. This is travelling north along Windsor Hill, and there's the access there. So you come off the access to where Mendip Fireplaces is, and there's a little access on your left there that takes you up to the site. And you can just see under the tree there the sort of popping up of the stable building. So very low impact at the moment, and you wouldn't even notice the site as you drove by. That's the building. Some horses outside. Stable building. Right. So obviously the house is considerably larger than the stable building. Well over twice as high. So in terms of its visual impact, it's going to be quite predominant in that rural location. It's of no particular, the design isn't great either. It's a very bulky, massive, large property that's going to have a significant impact. So along with the building being in an incredibly unsustainable location, although you might disagree, it is not accessible by any other means of transport to Shepton Mallet or any other surrounding areas other than by the private car, and significant impact on the character of the area. So obviously it goes against all our key policies that try to avoid isolated homes in the countryside. But as our council has already pointed out, we have to put that against the planning balance because we don't have a up-to-date local plan. But my assessment in my report concludes that the two harms that I've mentioned, its isolated location and contrary to our key core principal local plans, your local plan, and its significant adverse impact on the character of the area and street scene, etc., landscape. These harms do in this case outweigh the limited benefits of bringing forward just one dwelling for the council. This concludes my application. And the application is recommended for refusal.
Thank you very much, Carlton. We have is it the applicant speaking now? Michaela Shortman, correct? Thank you. And Michaela, you have 3 minutes, okay?
Good afternoon. My name is Michaela Shortman. I'm the applicant for this application. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'd first like to stress that this application has not been made through choice, but through personal life-changing circumstances. I've lived in this current house at Windsor Hill Lane for 22 years, where I was married and raised my children. My husband works locally. One of my sons is an apprenticeship in Shepton Mallet, and the other one is in education locally. We've established a good lifestyle and links in Windsor Hill Lane. We attend numerous activities and hobbies within the local area. In August 2020, I suffered a serious horse riding accident, which resulted in me being hospitalised for 6 months, and the rehabilitation has taken 4 years. I was crushed from the neck downwards, and I was told that I would never walk again. When I was released from hospital, I could only go to my parents' bungalow as they had a bungalow on 1 level. My occupational therapist and physio stated that my house would be dangerous and would create mobility issues for me. When I returned home, I then had to retire from my job as Avon and Somerset Constabulary. I was a police officer for 29 years. I'm permanently paralysed now on my left leg. I'm registered disabled and receipt of enhanced rate of PIP due to my restricted mobility. I love my current home and where I live. I love the area, the rural location, but my house has split levels, and unfortunately it just makes it very difficult and it's not safe for me. And the adaptations I need are not feasible within my home. From Mr. Lanford's summary, the stable block is concrete block construction. It's 4 large stables, a tack room and a large store. And on the back there is also a large hay barn. It's described as inconspicuous. Yes, a planning application would be considerably larger, but we would be screened by mature trees and hedgerows and would make it secluded. It needs to be large to compensate for my wheelchair and accessibility, which also includes downstairs accommodation and a wet room. The proposal is described as isolated from the rest of Downside. It is actually covered by public footpaths within the immediate vicinity. The bus stop is 0.7 miles and the cycle route is 0.5 miles. The distances are consistent with other properties nearby and also those actually in Shepton Mallet. Windsor Hill Woods now have disabled access and great access for me around all the local lanes and footpaths. The house itself, this was supported by the parish council, which supported our application. We've also had numerous assessments for ecological and environmental assessments which have been clear. In terms of highways, they're also happy with the application, and we've tried to make it very supportive to the design of the local area. All the houses locally are 2-storey houses, or some are 3-storey houses with dormer windows. It is very in keeping with the local property, and that's what we've tried to maintain. This will be our family home, and I'm requesting this to build a house where I can have easy access, where I can use my wheelchair and I can lead the best life possible and be as independent as possible.
Thank you very much, Michaela, for your presentation. Thank you. Give you a couple of minutes.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, committee. We have, for some reason, it must cross boundaries. We have 4 divisional councillors for this area. So we'll start with Councillor Benty Height, please. No, I can do that. That's fine. Councillor Lovell first.
Thank you, Chair. I've put on the portal a list of things that ask the question, why should it come to this committee? I explained why, so that's the list of things there. I think I'm happy to listen to the discussion and leave my decision until to see how the discussion has gone. Though I think I will point out, which I don't think has been sufficiently said, actually, there is quite a community there. So when it's claiming to be an isolated property, yes, arguably it's a few meters away from the nearest building, but there's actually quite a lot of property up there, and it's developed quite a lot within our time. So there's quite a pocket of residences there, which are not inconsistent with what's being put in front of us. And I think that just needs to be made clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I'll come back to you now then, Benty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, there is a lot of building up there, and there has been for years. It could really do with a new road surface. All the potholes are not very good for vehicles, and I am in that situation that I think it's a beautiful area, and it should be left for very few people to live there, and also then left alone. So I fully agree with what the officer is saying, and I am actually supporting the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Benty. Edric, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm absolutely in agreement with Councillor Hart. I feel it's an isolated area, and I don't think it needs any further development. I know it very well. I've been running walk around there, and I agree with everything Carlton said.
Okay, that's yours. And Tony.
Apologies. This is obviously a very difficult one to decide, but I think we have to decide it on our guidelines and rules that govern us on what we can and can't do. And although my heart's telling me that we should allow these people to build this house, my head's saying that Carlton and his views have to be upheld in this case, and I will be going along with him, along with the officer.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Okay, opening up to everybody else now. Anybody wish to speak? Adam, yeah.
Thank you, and I appreciate the impact on the landscape and visibility of the dwelling. It's obviously going to be higher than the stable block, but is there any dispensation or consideration we can give to the applicant's special circumstances in this case, because they obviously need a house for the applicant's special needs? Does it matter in the planning balance at all? Thanks.
Essentially, in the planning balance, we give the land planning permission. We don't give people planning permission. So the development is brought before us, and we consider whether that development has an impact on the character of the area. Okay, so we can consider things. So that is a key principle, how we assess where development should take place. Then we can take into consideration design matters if that principle is acceptable, but it's not in this case. So we can't then take other matters of design that would aid someone's disability.
Okay, thank you, Carlton. Adam?
Thank you, and I think I'm sympathetic to the application, to be honest, because I'd hate to be in her circumstances. It's not fair. Life's not fair. So I'm thinking about what everybody else has to say, but I'm inclined to vote for it, to be honest. I mean, as in, what's the real harm? If we refuse this, it harms her life. If we accept it, who does it really harm? I know there's policy to consider, but we are human beings. So I'm going to try and find a way through this.
Thanks. Thank you, Adam. I think Mick Dunk is next.
On this one, I sort of agree with the councillor's recommendation, because it is significantly large, and one wonders how an application would have been treated if it had been 1 story high and less sort of visible in the landscape. But this one is quite large, and I'm afraid on this one I have to agree with the officer. But it's a shame, and I have to say it's a difficult position for us to be in, but we have to try and adhere to our guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Martin, you're next.
Yeah, I think Carlton answered.
Carlton, you want to come back on something?
I think he's just answered the question I was going to ask. So a different application would still fall foul of the same regulations if it was single story. Is that what you're implying?
Like I say, it's a weighted process. Okay, so if at this moment in time we consider there to be two key reasons, that two harms. One, what it looks like in terms of the character of the area, and the other, it's isolated location where it is wholly reliant on the use of the private car. So there's no opportunity to go into town via other means of transport like cycling or walking or catching a bus, etc. So we weigh that against the fact that we don't have sufficient housing supply. But though in this case, those harms are so significant and so policy weighted in terms of our own local plan policies that they significantly weigh against those small benefits of bringing forward just one additional house. You know, the national policy and our policy is very, very strict. It says don't build isolated homes in the countryside. You just allowed one earlier on, contrary to policy. You had no policy basis to hang that on whatsoever, you know. So you could do exactly the same thing in this one and have no policy basis to hang it on if you want to. It's up to you guys.
Right, thanks, Carlton. Okay, Martin. Right, thank you. Barry is next, yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I've got the message from Carlton, but I was going to suggest that if this application was remade with a single story, I don't know, call it a ranch style bungalow, that would still be precluded because of your policies.
Yes, I think in this case, because it's so isolated that we, as case officers, we would, but it is just that one reason then.
Okay, Barry, satisfied. Benty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think most councillors have had a say now, so I will now propose that we go with the recommendation of the planning officer.
Thank you. Does Benty have a seconder? Mick, Councillor McDunk. Thank you. And Edric wishes to speak before we go to a vote.
Yeah, again, having said, you know, I agree with the Carlton in this one. I would, and I appreciate Carlton said about it being an unsustainable location totally. I'd like to remind some of us who may have been here when we approved one in Bolters Lane a few years ago. I don't know if Adam sat on the board then. Most of us, I don't know if Benty that fed into a Shepton board then. We approved a disabled bungalow on this board then. And although Carlton said it would still fall foul of this, I think maybe some of us on this board would be more amenable to a development if a bungalow definitely suitable for somebody disabled came back. Maybe you view a different view, but that's up to the applicant. At the moment, I'm happy to go with Carlton's recommendation fully. But I think maybe if the applicant took on board this and came up with something else, maybe we'd be more amenable towards it. Although Carlton says it's still fall foul, I'll just leave that one in the public domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Edric. You wish to respond, Benty?
Yes, thank you. And it is correct, Bolters Lane, and it was by the young father's employer given the land or opposite because there was no more that could be done about the house. And there was a young son and they were going to send the family in 3 different directions. And that was the reason why it was done.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Now we have a proposal. I can't remember who actually proposed it. Which was Benty proposed it and was seconded by Mick, Councillor Dunk, that we go with officer recommendation. So we'll have to vote. All those in favour of that particular one. Two. Okay, all against? And abstentions? Two. Okay, thank you. So it is carried. Okay, so unfortunately, no bungalow, no house will be built. I'm sorry. Okay, so we move on to number 10. Is it, I believe. Yeah, I'm just checking here. Oh yeah, I've got it. Okay, the erection of a single dwelling and associated. That's all I've got here. And this is on the Mendip Hills division, and it is recommended for approval. And Anna, it's yours.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this application is for land adjacent to Sunley Fossway, and it's the postal address comes under Kilmersdon because that's kind of the nearest place within Mendip, but it's on the edge of Midsummer Norton, Westfield, to be honest, as you'll see in the next location plan. In fact, the aerial photo there. So we've got the A367 Fossway, and then to the south, the White Post roundabout. So it is right on the edge of the district, council area, former Mendip district. So the site is there highlighted with that red oval shape. It's accessed off this little lane here. I'll go into the next slide. So there you can see the access is part of the application site, and then there's a new dwelling is proposed in this part here. So that's the existing site plan. So currently it is associated with property Sunley to the east, the swimming pool and patio area. It's just part of the residential curtilage currently. The site is outside of development limits, but obviously there are a number of properties you'll see around it. It's definitely well connected to Baines, Midsummer Norton. There was recently an application for the site to the southeast, which proposed 2 additional dwellings, and there's also been an application to split the property Madapur, so I can't quite remember how we pronounce it. So that application did propose some improvements to the accessway because it has become quite overgrown in places. So this application would be conditioned to have similar improvements made to the accessway, and on that basis the Highway Authority are happy with the application. There's the floor plans, and that's just some photos there to show you how the access works. So you'll note that there is sort of effectively 2 lanes coming out at the same place, and we've got a wall there. Ideally, it would have been good to have had that reduced in height, but as the applicant doesn't have control over that, so that's not something that we can control, but Highways are satisfied that that won't be sufficient to recommend refusal. So although the lane's not ideal, with the improvements that are proposed to be required through condition, the highway position is considered acceptable. And Chair, my recommendation is for approval.
Thank you, Anna. We do have the applicant, I believe, Philip Tranter. Yep. Yeah. And you have 3 minutes, Philip. Or thereabouts.
Okay, I'm the applicant. The planning application has had support from the local parish. Obviously, the highways are happy and the local authority are also happy. I was told not to get personal, so most of my speech is out the window. Again, as Anne says, the land adjacent to it has had approval for 2 dwellings in a plot that is considerably smaller than the plots that I have drawn up. As you've seen, I've drawn them up myself. I've not employed an architect. I've sat on the kitchen table and basically put in place what I feel the neighbours would be happy with. To be fair, that's all I need to say. I'm happy with that.
Okay, if you're happy to say that, that's absolutely fine, and you're well within your 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's change. Okay, so we're going to go to the members now. The first member for the area, we've got them both here, is Edric.
Hi, yeah. Well, having done all the leafleting there a couple of years ago, so I walked up and down that lane. I know with the condition relating to the passing place, I'm perfectly happy with it. I've no further issues at all. I'm happy to, you know, see else things, but I'm edging towards recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Edric. Tony?
Thank you, Chair. I completely agree with Edric. It's an area that Edric and I know very well because obviously it's our division. I went and had a look. The lane on the right-hand side of the picture, yes, is a bit narrow, but all that needs is trimming back, and I'm quite happy to support the application.
Right, thank you. So between you, is one proposing and the other seconding?
I'm happy to propose it, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to come in? Yes, I thought you might, Mick.
You're clairvoyant, Chair. I'm not minded to approve it. It's just that if you're having a ground source heat pump, I'd like to applaud that. The applicant, I'd like to applaud the use of a ground source heat pump. And I also think it would be very sensible, considering you've got a swimming pool, to link that to solar panels, because in terms of sustainability, I'm afraid swimming pools don't really tick the box unless you're going to have cold water swimming, which is a bit of a fad at the moment and might take off. But that's my only comment, really. I'm surprised not to see panels on the roof of this house.
Whilst the chair reads some paperwork, Carl would like to come in, please.
I would. Thank you. So the swimming pool is the existing, not proposed.
I realise that, but it's not. It's not being filled in, as far as I know.
That's not part of the application.
No, exactly. Okay, I'll butt out then.
Go in.
Okay, mate, you're done. Anybody else like to make a comment before we go to a vote? No? Okay. So the recommendation, as far as I can see, is to go with the officer recommendation. Correct? And proposed by Edric, seconded by Tony. So all in favour? Unanimous. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So there you are.
Did you read
that one sorted?
The swimming pool's coming. Building a house on one.
Okay, thank you. I'm afraid we've got to keep going because we've got a couple more to get through, yeah? So we go on to number 11, which is the construction of agricultural barn access improvements land at Stockhill, Chilcumpton. Okay, this one is Carlton.
I'm the chairman, just trying to link up again.
I think we may have a slight technical hitch again, have we?
booted out. Now we booted out. No?
I can feel a comfort break coming on.
Right, you got it? Don't know what's happened here. I'm just frozen now. Thank you, Chairman. Let me get, oh, where's he gone now? Right, thank you, Chairman. This application is for full planning permission for the construction of a new agricultural barn with some minor access improvements to the site and associated works because it's a steep sloping site and we've got to cut the application barn into the site, sort of cut and fill. So drawing on the right shows the outline and drawing on the left shows that triangular parcel of land there in context of the surrounding area. So you've got Stockwell Road to the north there coming to the end, and then it sort of starts coming into into more rural countryside. We move on to the next slide. Right, so this is topography of the site. You can see from the narrow contour lines there that it's a relatively steep site. Not ideal, but it's about 3.38 hectares, I understand. And the applicant wants to put a small cow herd on the site, so requires this small building. Through the life of the application, we've negotiated on the size of the building, the height of the building. So we've reduced the height to minimise its impacts on the character of the area. And it is sort of cut into the land somewhat. I've got some photographs that will come up in a minute, hopefully.
Okay. It's just not working.
Hang on.
So essentially, I'm recommending the application for approval with the conditions that you'll see attached to my report. Very much the application is for an agricultural building only, so we're conditioning it as such. Now consider that the height and scale of the building is now being reduced to a significant level that it won't have a huge impact on the carriage appearance of the countryside.
We should appear to have your emails now, Carlton.
That's not me.
That's not you.
No. Stop working altogether.
So, okay.
That's what happened to me.
That's it. You're happy, are you?
It would have been nice if I'd shown you some. Shall I give it?
I would like to saw some photos if there was any, if it's possible.
I think it would. I will.
If I can buy in a moment, I'd like to see the full presentation. I don't think it's fair on the applicant or any objectors if we don't see the full application, would be my opinion.
Can we use somebody else's laptop?
That's what I'm trying to do, Chair. We're running it from mine to start with.
Okay.
You sure yours is gone? I'm going to leave that. I'm going to join again. Join now.
Nearly successful.
Okay, so essentially the building will be sited to the north of the site. Next one. Next one. Right. So that's the building. You see, it's cut in with gabions at the back, sort of as a retaining wall. So it sits quite a few meters down the slope from the north end of the site, and then an access is off the north lane as well. Carry on. You go further. Shall I give it a go? Present. I've got 1 minute. I've got a present coming up. Excellent. Yeah. Right. Okay. So if you see the sort of right in the center of that photograph, this is sort of almost a triangular piece of land. Yeah. So, just here, this is the application site. So this is what you'll see from the other side of the valley, sort of thing, on the south, which my arrow there indicates. Okay. If we go to the next photograph. So this is a picture off Google Maps, but it's sort of taken as you drive up the lane towards Stockville Road, where it goes into Chilcompton. And you can see there by that photograph how quite steep the site is. Okay, so obviously we've had objectors from the parish, etc., with regard to its visual impact, etc., on the character and appearance of the area, and various other reasons that all been discussed in my report. Don't consider any of these. We have to consider that the proposal before us, not any previous enforcement history on the site or anything like that, and we consider that it's a legitimate application for a livestock building, feed store, cum hay store, for a small farming enterprise, and it's not unreasonable, and it doesn't have significant impact on the character of the area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carlton. We got there in the end. The internet or Wi-Fi. So we do, I believe, we have an objector. We have Mr. Kevin Knowles, please. And Kevin, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm here today to read the following on behalf of the residents of Moorwood, Benter, Ashwick and parts of Chilcompton who cannot attend today's meeting, but wish to make known our continued objections to these plans for what is an economically unsound project from an agricultural point. A local businessman, not a farmer, bought this land, and while in the process of submitting planning permission for the barn in February, had designed and constructed the motocross track, which took the best part of 2 weeks to complete. We note at the bottom of page 135 of today's meeting document, it states the motocross has now ceased. However, As of lunchtime today, no work has been carried out to reinstate the field to its pre-February 2024 condition. Until this happens, and maybe even beyond, the deep-rooted level of suspicion that local residents have will remain. That being, the ultimate desire is to have the barn as a support building for the motocross and possibly a helicopter. This feeling is reinforced when we are led to believe that this is the second time the owner has tried to build a motocross track on the outskirts of Chilcompton. The creation of this motocross track, not shown on any of the photographs, destroyed the view of 5 homeowners on the south side of the valley. For those homeowners, and for local homeowners whose views may not have been wrecked, this scar has affected the desirability and value of their homes. Should this track remain and used for either commercial or personal use, then the noise from the high-revving bikes on land which the case officer describes as having close contour lines would be highly intrusive and unwelcomed for residents and visitors alike, echoing, as it will, in all directions towards Chilcompton, Oak Hill, Gurney Slade and Nettlebridge. On page 134, it recommends there must be some form of control for the storage and disposal of animal waste before the barn is used to house animals. Our concern for this stems from the fact that the water from the field seeps into the lane in all but driest weather, and that it is possible for this water to enter the stream from the lane. We strongly urge the planning committee to refuse planning permission for this barn. If planning consent is given and this backdoor approach is successful, then we believe it will give the green light to the landowner to go ahead and indulge in his motocross activities. Surely one man's selfish actions cannot be allowed to destroy the peace, beauty, lives and livelihoods of an entire area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you very much. 3 minutes. There are no other public speakers, so we will go to the 2 divisional councillors, which Edric and Tony again. So Edric, you're first.
Now swap around. Tony can go first for a change. Only what he wants to say.
Okay, Tony, you're going to go first, mate.
It's modern technology, Chair. I'm not used to it. Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair. I don't think I've ever seen in my short term on this committee, ever seen an application that's been approved by officers that's had so many objections to it. And I've read every single objection, and they're genuine. They're not in my backyard. They're not jealousy or anything like that. They're genuinely objecting to this. So I'm between a rock and a hard place somewhat. I really would like to hear what the rest of the committee and the vice chair have to say on it.
Thank you, Tony. Right, Edric, you're going to have to say something now.
Yeah, I too have received a very large postbag on this and many phone calls over the weekend. I have reservations. Let's try and stick to the facts, because unfortunately Mr. Knowles was moving far away from material considerations on this. So let's try and stick to the facts. I don't think it's a sustainable barn location on such a small field. And I think it's pushing the envelope rather a lot to think this is a sustainable development, even though it may be classed as what permitted agricultural development or have you. I think it's spurious to say the least. Should we leave it at that in a moment?
Okay, thank you, Edric. We'll now move into the normal committee committee members. Yeah, Martin.
I won't take that personally, Mr. Chairman, but thank you. I'll be as normal as I can on this occasion. I need some advice, actually, about whether we have two conflicting views of what this barn is for. Are we allowed to condition it so it is used only for agricultural use and it doesn't become a garage for a helicopter? Right, okay. So, yeah, so
if it's used otherwise, we have to take enforcement action, yeah? So is there
Do we have an answer on that one?
Yeah, I got a nod, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, okay, I think.
Adam?
Thank you. I think that the objector also mentioned drainage, animal waste. Is there any concern about where if animal waste was produced there would end up? And can we condition a scheme being required to for approval of disposal of aqueous waste of any sort, animal waste of any sort? Is that a reasonable thing to do?
Well, there's both a condition of the permission that they put in a scheme for drainage for animal waste, etc. And it's also a requirement of the Environment Agency permission to get the necessary consents from them with the disposal of animal waste. So hopefully, between the two organisations, hopefully we can come up with something appropriate.
So conditions 3 and 4 cover that. The use for agriculture and the disposal of animal waste storage and disposal details. So basically, it's the tricky thing is if people believe it's being proposed for another reason, we have to trust the application. I don't think we can really assume that it's not genuine. It may not be, but we can't assume that it's not genuine under the law and policy. You can't, and it's the application is for a barn. It's for animals. So we have to determine it on that basis, not what people believe it might be, even though they may be right.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you, Adam, and it should be taken as for what the application is, and not for us to assume.
The conditions require it to be in accordance with agricultural use and drainage details to be included. So if it isn't, then that's an enforcement issue, and we've had this on other issues, on other applications. If things are built differently, it's an enforcement issue. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Mick.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I know there's a provision that is a bespoke trigger that no animals or livestock shall be housed within the building until details of the arrangements for the storage of disposal of animal waste have first been submitted and approved to us. I would like that to be a condition that we receive that before any building work is undertaken, because if it's really for animals and livestock, then that shouldn't be any particularly onerous thing to do, because you're intending to use it for that purpose. Even if it's a mixed use, there'll be livestock and machinery. To have that in writing delivered to us, because it is quite a sloping site, and it's, I would have thought, a challenging site with which to house slurry. So I think we should have that in writing as the bespoke trigger. If that could be changed, I'd be happy with that. Otherwise, I do have my concerns. And there's a river watercourse right at the bottom of that field. And we're telling everyone else that it must be phosphate neutral. It makes it, I think we ought to get our priorities right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. Could somebody answer that question?
It's when you put conditions on, they need to be reasonable and they need to meet 6 tests, which is set out. In this case, the building has a multiple functions, so it's a feed store, it's a tractor store, etc. And so he might not have animals. He might put the building up and decide maybe he'll have, a tractor and, just grow the grass and then cut that and what have you. So we can't stop him putting the building up so he can get the operation going, right? So this is why I worded it in the way I have. And it's the same goes with he might decide that maybe it is too steep to have cows on the field and etc. So you might want sheep or something like that. So you'll come up with a different mechanism with regard to how he deals with animal waste on the site. So this is the way I've phrased them. The conditions aren't there to stop development. They're just there to make sure that we have the right information. So when that use is implemented, it's not going to be harmful.
I think, thank you for that, Carlton. And yeah, incidentally, my father, when he started farming he had steeper land than that to start with, so that's not really a problem for a farmer to get round. Okay, do we have
Haggis are good, Chairman.
Bente, you wish to come in?
Yes, I got a question, and that is, are there badgers on the site, or is it likely one could find a couple or two? And then I can see that land is perfect for motocross, and the building is perfect for having a cafe on the Sunday track, because that is what they would do in the country I come from. Thank you.
To answer your question, there wasn't any badgers found in the survey that was carried out by the applicant, but there were various other protected species found, and you'll see the conditions attached to, with regard to reptiles, etc. Yeah.
Okay, we make quickly because I'm aware of the time as well.
Yes, just another question really about the ecologist has worded conditions and she would like them applied as worded. Has the officer incorporated those into conditions 6 and 7, and has her conditions, have they been applied as worded, or will they be applied as worded?
I've worded them slightly better than she's worded.
Would she agree with you?
I like your reply there. Right, very good. Okay, Barry, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, please, Chair. I know this area really, really well. I lived about 100 yards away from it. It is a very steep field. It does go down to the stream at the bottom. And I didn't really have any issues until somebody mentioned the word helicopter. Now, I don't know who the owner or the applicant is. Would that be knowledge that we could have, Carlton? Because if you look at your site plan on page 143, roughly where you've got the level 173.3 meters, there's a guy there that owns a helicopter. And I just wondered if he had this piece of land and was indeed intending to park his helicopter up there, amongst other things.
Would that be relevant? We would be
Sorry?
Checks that. You've had quite a lot of debate, and I think the chair's pointed out, one of your fellow councillors has pointed out, you've got to consider the application that's in front of you. So you've heard from Carlton in terms of the conditions 3 and 4 and the controls that gives you if you make a positive decision. If the applicant uses the land for something different, then you won't have approved it, because what you're approving is a barn to be used for agricultural purposes.
Well, you'll be the enforcement officer, I understand, Simon, so that's good.
I won't be the enforcement officer, Councillor Clark, but I'm sure there'll be.
I thought the duties were passing to you.
I'm sure there'll be an officer in the council who will look at that. Yeah.
And the other point I'd just like to make, please, Chairman, at the north end of that site, I think it's just off the site, but it would be nice to make sure that it wasn't damaged. There's the remains of the narrow gauge railway that used to go from Nettlebridge Colliery, Neighbourhood Colliery, up to the sidings at Embra. And it would be a great shame if that was destroyed in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. I think it's been taken on board what you said, and we'll move on to a proposal. Has anybody got a proposal? We haven't seen one yet. Okay, Martin, you're going to propose
that we vote in favour of this proposal in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
That we approve in line with the officer recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Adam. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we can move to a vote. And right, here we go. All those in favour, and remember that we are taking what we've got in front of us and not any assumptions. So all those in favour. All those against? And abstentions?
Sorry,
So it's actually carried, I believe, then, that it's approved. Okay, thank you. We can now move on to our next one, which is number 12. And this one is change of use from agricultural land to dog exercise area, land at Embra Farm, Vinegar. And Kelly is doing this one. And the applicant was here earlier, but I'm not sure if he's over there. He is over there. Right, okay. Thank you. So, Kelly, your turn.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm doing this as a double act with Simon because Teams keeps crashing for me. So I'm hoping it's not going to crash for him. I've got a master's degree in planning, but not IT. So here we go. Let's hope it stays on its perch. This is Embra Farm, Romead Road, Vinegar, and members may recall back in April, you approved an application for this applicant to live on the site in a temporary mobile home for his agricultural farming business. This application is actually for change of use of land for a secured dog fence and exercise area. It includes a shelter for people using it, a dog bin, and a 1.9 metre high fence with gates around it. You can see there that that's the application site actually outlined in blue. The red is the land that the applicant owns. It's in a back consultation zone. It's outside the settlement limit and it's in the open countryside where development is strictly controlled. You can see Rookery Farm Business Park on the opposite side of the road, just to familiarise yourselves where this site is. And the proposal is to access off the B3135, which is existing, and then you'll turn right down an access track and it will be running parallel to the hedgerow that's along there. Next slide, please. That is the fence and the gates that are proposed. Next slide, please. This is an illustration of the shelter or shed building that's going to be there for the users of this facility. Next slide, please. That's the entrance off the main road that is currently there and obviously accesses the existing agricultural buildings and the mobile home that will be on site shortly if it's not already. And that's the visibility from the existing access in both directions. Next slide, please. That's internally within the site, so that's when you've turned off the main road, you turn immediately right, and that's the current gate with a stoned area, and that's the view down parallel to the hedge, and obviously the main road is the other side of the hedge. Is that it, Simon? I think one more, and that's just another view of the site. So as I said, this site is in a remote location, and it's on a piece of land that is currently used for agriculture and farming. And it is the officer's view that this pattern of use for dog walking is not what would normally be expected in a countryside location on a rural farm. In fact, in my view, most people would want to walk dogs on a secure field that was either in the town or on the edge of a town where people would walk to it with their dogs. In this location, users are going to be completely reliant on private vehicles to go to the site to walk their dog. And there has some argument has been made that the dog groomers across the road would use it, but that can't be guaranteed, Chairman. So it will be used by members of the public booking online, but they will inevitably be driving to the site. So it's in an unsustainable location, which would be against policy. And in addition to that, you've obviously got this alien feature of a nearly 2 metre high fence and the parking associated with that in an agricultural field in a rural location.
So for those reasons, Chairman, as set out in the report pack, this application is recommended for refusal.
Thank you, Kelly. I was under the impression that the applicant was going to speak. It's just not marked on here, or what I can see of it. So if you'd like to speak, it would be great. Before I start, Mr. Chairman, I have had a text through. My cow's calved successfully. Okay, I am the applicant, Philip Blatchford. Farming and Countryside is on the national curriculum from September 2025. We hope to start ahead of this and are already working with Somerset Education, the NFU education team, and education charity at Langport. I'm a qualified teacher. This application is to set up and run a secure fenced dog exercise area on our farm. The income from this proposal is so that we don't have to charge schools and homeschool groups for use of our proposed classroom, planning application for which will be later this year when we have finalised design and funding. Nor will they be charged for my time teaching their pupils in it. In her report, the planning officer stated that she did not have the required info relating to the shelter location or further design details. Why did she not ask me for them? I'm happy to agree its location with the planning officer should this application be approved by yourselves. The application states that there is only one wall in the shelter, and the drawing shows 2 notice boards as well. If the planning officer was unclear, she could have asked me for clarification, but I've heard nothing from her in 4.5 months the application has been determined. The planning officer states that he doesn't know where the fence and gates are located, but they are clearly shown on the location plan. The gates are galvanised frame mesh, and like deer fencing, they are unlikely to be visible from any reasonable distance on our property, and not at all from outside our property due to the high hedge and lower ground surface of our land. The highways objections regards visibility. 2 different planning officers as planning consultants, former heads of planning, who have been to our site cannot understand their objection and have told me that the photo evidence of the OS and DEFRA maps submitted clearly show that we by far exceed the requirements. As the planning officer said in her report, you have already approved the entrance in your determination for another of our applications at the March Planning Board. Highways also claim they don't have sufficient information. I emailed them with further info and requested what extra info they required, but they never responded. Regarding the objections, we find it odd that it was generally the dog businesses that objected, as they're the ones most likely to benefit from our site, and we have offered them free advertising in the dog exercise area. Issues relating to traffic from our site are daft, when there are at least 10 to 30 times more vehicles per hour using that site than what we're proposing, and they have very poor visibility their side. Noise, the site is located next to a busy main road and opposite a lorry business and business park. The location was chosen to be close to other development on the road, but as far away from houses, holiday lets as possible. It also needs to be on the drier part of our land. This area is very stony and hence poor agriculturally and drains easily. The site location is an open countryside like most dog exercise areas in the country. For example, Fenton's Fields had a second site approved by planning, had approved planning application in March 2022 in open countryside between Stoke St Michael and Leon Mendip. Ours is opposite a business park next to a busy road. It's envisaged that there'll be a high proportion of local users, judging by comments received on social media, as will be closer than they are where they currently travel to, so actually reducing car travel, but should not affect the next other good sites as they are at capacity anyway, apparently. Our proposal will hopefully benefit many of the businesses opposite, but we're not guaranteeing this, though we'll do what we can to encourage users to use the businesses.
Yeah, just to clarify, members, again, to avoid any confusion, you can see from the report pack that we're recommending refusal for 2 reasons. We're not questioning the site access arrangements from a, if you like, a highway safety point of view, i.e. car moving off of the highway onto the site, from the site back onto the highway. So just so you're clear on that.
Okay, everybody's happy with that. Okay, so who's going first, Edric or Tony?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'd like to commend Kelly on her report, and I would like to ask the applicant in future dealings with the officers, maybe be slightly less personal, please, Philip, because I think you were being a bit personal on some of your criticism of Caddy, and I think that should be done in a private forum, please. I think the officers need our support from applicants and members of the committee. Having said that, I do actually support Philip in his endeavours, and I can think of one other dog exercise there. I think the Smalls have got one up at Charterhouse, which is also in a very rural location surrounded by a mesh fence. As regard noise, I can't see it being much noise. I would like it, if we do approve this, condition the hours are shortened from 7 to 10 o'clock at night. I think that's too long. I'd like to see those hours curtailed somewhat to alleviate any noise which may go something to appease people opposite. I think, you know, maybe 8 till 8 would be more suitable. I'll leave my comments to that in a moment.
Okay, Tony, your turn.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with everything that my colleague has just said. I support this application. I think it does fit in the area. I'm not a dog lover by any means. My daughter will tell you that. So I don't understand dog psyche or anything like that, but I think this is ideal. As a country setting, green fields, it's got another, I think it's something to do with dogs across the road. I really honestly, I listened very carefully to the officer's reasoning, but I also very carefully disagree with a lot of it. So I will be supporting this application to go through against officer recommendation.
Thank you. Does that mean that one of you is going to propose and the other is going to second again?
Can I just come back and talk through the chair to my colleague? Are you happy with if we go for this, the recommendation, the hours are limited as well?
Yes.
Okay, and on abuse, Councillor Henry wants to speak.
So you're making a proposal, but with shortened hours.
Okay, I would like to propose we accept this, subject to the hours conditioned from 8 till 8.
Just ask for your reasoning, because again, in terms of controlling and managing noise, given its location, I think you'd be hard pushed to justify restrictive hours on terms of managing noise output. So,
okay, I just thought I was trying to help, you know, massage things along in relation to the comments made by people opposite. If the noise is not as early or later at night, although I appreciate it's supposed to be a small enterprise, only a couple of dogs. I was just trying to help things along relating to anybody who's nearby, although I appreciate there aren't many near residents, but there are some, that was all. But if you don't think it's suitable, then I understand that as well from your planning perspective.
Okay, let me understand that clearly, and for others to understand, we can have legal in a moment, yeah?
Mr. Chair, it's only daylight hours anyway.
Yeah, I will. Okay, Philip, I will allow you in, just quickly.
It's only daylight hours only, anyway, so it won't be very long hours.
Okay, so we get that. So that's daylight hours in the winter and in the summer.
Maximum 7 AM till 10 PM, but only daylight.
Okay, so members have that. Okay.
I still wanted to come in first before Barry.
Yeah, okay. Alistair.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. There is exactly this carbon copy of what's on the screen there, 3 miles outside Burnham-on-Sea, a place called West Huntsville, and it is actually smack bang in the main road. It's just like that. And I use it myself because I've got 3 dogs. Now, I'm not being biased, I'm just saying something, okay? People book either by telephone or online to use this place. The purpose to do that is the person who owns the place can maximise how many dogs he wants at any one time. Now, the dogs don't go running about barking. That's not what happens. My friend's got 7, believe it or not, and I've got 3. And they usually have a maximum of about 12 dogs at a time there, and the dogs actually run about and play. So the term dog walking is a very loose term. People don't go with their leads and walk around the park with the field. They don't. They let the dogs off the field, off the leads. They all run about playing. They've got car tyres and tunnels, all that kind of stuff, and they have a great time. The overriding thing here is this. Many people on housing estates have dogs, and they've got nowhere to take them at all. Nothing. So they can't just walk them round the pavements and the tarmac streets on a housing estate. That's just not possible for every person. So what they do is, yes, they put them in their car, and yes, they take them to the dog walking area, if you call it that again. They park their cars up and let them out. But there's only a maximum of probably 3, maximum 4 cars at any one time. They leave and another 4 come in. I'm fully in favour of this. I can't see anything negative other than the 10 o'clock closing time. I don't go with that whatsoever, because you have to be a bit respectful for other people. So if dogs were barking, which is not actually as common as you might think, if they were barking, it's unrealistic to allow that up till 10 o'clock in the evening. Now, the people who own the one at West Huntsville, they come and open it and lock it. So you're not likely to get somebody to come down 7 days a week every day at 10 o'clock at night to lock it. So if they had a cut-off point at 7 or 8 o'clock, that's absolutely fine. But these places have to be allowed because people have got dogs, they've got nowhere to take them, and that place is exactly right. And there's one in West Huntsville, 3 miles out of Burnham. I'm fully in favour of it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alistair. That was intriguing, because I'm not a dog. I'm like Tony. I'm not a particularly dog lover, so it's good to learn something every day. Okay, who else would like to come in? Barry now, yeah?
Thank you, Chairman. We did an application probably 6 months ago for a similar exercise. I just wonder if we could be consistent with the hours. What we said to them, then we should say to Mr. Blatchford. We can't say to 7 till 7 in one place and 7 till 10 in another. So if we could just double check back on the hours.
Just to say, members, again, if I felt there was a need for there to be some control in terms of managing noise, I would urge you to impose that condition if, in the event that you recommend approval. The reason why I'm saying I don't think it would pass the test is because there aren't any residential properties that close by. So the other one that you're talking about was there's one in Beckington that is right on the outskirts of Beckington and adjacent to residential properties. Whereas here, it is, as Kelly said, an isolated countryside location. There is activity opposite, as the applicants pointed out, but that's commercial use, daytime activity. So again, if you go ahead and want to approve this application, I think you can do so without worrying too much about the house.
Thank you for that, Simon. Definitely. So we have a proposal. Everybody seems to have talked themselves out. We've learned a bit more about dog behaviour. So we have a proposal from Edric, seconded by Tony. Edric, would you?
We still don't have any reasons. Need some reasons.
We need some reasons. I was just about to ask him for that. Oh, no problem. Edric, we need reasons if you're going to go against officer recommendation.
I'm happy. I'm happy. It is sustainable and it's needed for the business. I don't know how I enunciate that properly in relation to. I'm just going back through it now. What were the I'm going back for the refusal reasons. Sorry to overturn them. I'm quite happy. Simon's whisked my ear up. I'm quite happy. It's a sustainable location. I mean, Philip's trying to build a business there. We give him permission for some of it. It seems churlish to turn it down the rest. I think it is fully sustainable location. As people already, as Alistair's said, people take their dogs out into the countryside anyway. So I think it is sustainable. If that's a good enough reason. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. And
it is a sustainable location.
So that's it. That's the reason. Okay.
Just to say, Chair, that's fine. If the Vice Chair wants to support it as a sustainable location, he can use policy CP1 and CP3 to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. Right, so we now know what we're voting on properly. So, all those in favour of Edric's motion? I'm going to go with it as well. Good God. And against? And any abstentions? Okay. Okay, so that one has passed. So, Ms. Blanchford, you'll be able to have your dog walking run or play pen or whatever. Okay, thank you. Do we have any appeals to go through? I think there is one, isn't there?
There's one appeal, Chair, and that was in relation to a prior approval, so a Class Q application. So that's where under central government legislation, you can convert a building if it was in rural use back in 2013, I think, to a residential dwelling, as long as it complies with certain criteria. And the particular application, we as officers refused it and said that it didn't comply with the necessary tests, and the inspector agreed with us. So that's good news.
Well, that's good. Okay, not costing money. Okay, I think that we are at the end of our meeting. We've just about made it because we could have gone to about 10 past with the break. So good, we've just done it. Thank you. Have a good evening, and we'll see you all next month, if not before.